Hello everyone, welcome to this video, a film-related video. Haven't done much of these on my channel recently, but we are doing this little expedition. I kind of decided to do this after the fact. I'm a big Hitchcock fan. I enjoy a good number of his movies, a lot of his more famous ones, notable ones. But I realized, I haven't seen his more obscure ones, things that aren't as commonly talked about. And so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go on Rotten Tomatoes and I'm going to go through the list and I'm going to pick out every single Alfred Hitchcock movie that has a good critic score and audience score. And this amounts to about 32 films. 7 in the British era, 25 in the Hollywood era. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go through these and just, enjoy some Hitchcock that I haven't seen before because, we're approaching October, going into the fall, and it's like, I'm kind of in the mood for some thriller stuff. I've seen, I saw my first Brian De Palma thriller, Dressed to Kill, a few weeks ago, and it got me eager and hungry for some Hitchcock, so I decided to do this. And as I was watching these, as I watched the first one, The Lodger, I'm like, you know what? This would be a great excuse for a YouTube video. I'm just gonna go and I'm gonna watch all of these Hitchcock movies and talk about them. And then I realized, you know what? I should probably just do all the good ones. All the good ones. Not just the ones I haven't seen, but the ones I have seen too. So I will be doing 32 Hitchcock movies in this video that you are watching now. I don't know how long it will take me. At the time of recording this, it is August 22nd, 2022. I have already seen the first 2 films on this list as of recording this intro, and I will be watching the third soon. So the way this will work is I'll probably just do a quick little vlog type of review, chatting about the movie after I watch it, a non-spoiler section and then a spoiler section. And we're just going to do that for all 32 movies, and then I'll do a little outro closing thoughts on what I thought about the whole experience. That's really it. We're not going to do anything crazy in depth. We're just going to have some fun watching some Hitchcock movies, and maybe along the way I'll be able to recommend some things to you guys that you hadn't heard of or seen before. So without further ado, let's begin with the first one, The Lodger. Alright, so I just got done watching The Lodger, which was the first movie on my list. Now this was 1927. It was, now I probably said this in the intro, I'm going by good critic review score and good audience review score. Now this was his, I believe, third theatrical release, third feature film, released in February of 27. It is a silent film. I will say, I thought there was a twist coming. I was expecting a twist. I'll probably do a non-spoiler portion and a spoiler portion for these things. I thought there was a twist coming. There was not. It's a very simple story, as most pre-Citizen Kane dramas and thrillers are. What's interesting about this being one of them, the few Hitchcock British movies I've seen, is how they don't really feel like Hitchcock, but they still have that Hitchcock spice to it. This definitely does not feel like Hitchcock in some ways. It shares that thriller resemblance, but it's still got those silent film quirks that, we all know and recognize. Very basic movie. I can see how it was very popular, which I think it was. The acting was fine. The cinematography was okay. It was lit interestingly. I watched a restored version on HBO Max, and there was different color schemes happening. It wasn't just sepia, it was also black and white. There was blue tones, there was purple tones. I don't know if that was intentional at the time or if it was a retrospective kind of thing, but I thought that was an interesting touch. A spoiler section here. The twist that I thought was coming was I thought that maybe the father of the dancer or model or whoever it was, actress June Tripp or someone like that. I thought that maybe the father was going to end up being the Avenger, but because of all of the blonde women, the pictures of the blonde women in the house really threw me off. Like, why are there just pictures of blonde women in the house? Maybe I missed something. And I thought that that was maybe like just kind of a smokescreen to the fact that it was the dad, because I think the dad had to leave one of the Tuesday nights as well. So I thought maybe it was him. It was not. The Avenger was just caught. You never found out who it was, as far as I can tell. So that's whatever. But that little part aside, I think it was an entertaining movie. Is it one of Hitchcock's best? No. But I can see why it was kind of a launching point for his thriller stuff. It was his first thriller feature. And I can see it being like the bedrock for the things that he'll build on later. So interested to see what comes next. Okay, so I'm recording the second part here for Blackmail 1929. Second movie I have watched. Definite improvement over The Lodger. Also very much a Hitchcock movie at this point. A lot of really good like psychological things going on in the movie. A lot of his motifs have showed up here. I watched the sound version. Apparently, allegedly, the silent cut was more popular at the time. I don't know which is better, which is worse. The silent cut, the audio was so low. I watched most movies with subtitles anyway, but the audio was so low on the dialogue that like I could barely hear what they were saying. And apparently they had to dub the dialogue for the female actress Annie Oldra. I forget what her name is. I'm not going to look it up because I'm lazy. Because she had like a heavy Czech accent or something, so they had to hire some British actress to do her lines. But anyway, I think that the acting was great from the lead actress. It got a little bit stale after a while, but thankfully the movie is kind of short and it gets in, gets out, does its stuff very quickly. Good diverse sets as well. It doesn't really feel like a silent movie anymore. It feels like you're going into different locations. It doesn't have that like kooky like simplicity and of like The Lodger did and a lot of silent films do, where it's like we need to amplify the things that are going on and the absurdity of what's going on, even if it's not very illicit, because you can't do illicit stuff in these silent films back in the day. But this felt a little more forward thinking. I just like the appearance of all of these Hitchcockian things that are going on, and it very much feels like a Hitchcock movie at this point. Spoiler section. I liked like I said, the acting from the actress, the forward-thinking psychological motifs. After she commits the murder, she's just like traumatized, and like on the way home, the cocktail neon sign changing into a knife stabbing, that was cool. Very forward-thinking for 1929. If this was happening in other movies, I don't know what it was, like what those movies were. And just very simple plot, moved forward at a decent clip, got in, got out, and it felt like a Hitchcock movie at that point. As far as like the beats of and the pacing of the plot. So yeah, very nice, pleasant surprise 2 years after The Lodger, which barely felt like a Hitchcock movie, honestly. Next movie we will do will be The Man Who Knew Too Much. I have seen the 56 version, so I'm familiar with the story. I'm eager to see what this earlier version is like, though, so we'll see you then. Okay, so I just watched The Man Who Knew Too Much. This is the third film on my list, third of the British era. This is 5 years after Blackmail. This is 1934. I have seen the remake, quote unquote, that he did in 56 in the Hollywood era, with Doris Day and James Stewart. Is that right? Am I getting that right? I actually grew up with that movie, so it's going to be hard to not compare the original versus the remake that comes, a couple decades later. But I'll try my best to just review this in a vacuum. This was really great. This was really good. More of that Hitchcock that we're all familiar with. I know that this was apparently his most popular British movie, and I can definitely see why. A lot of the things that Hitchcock kind of, made a staple in the thriller genre are present here. And it hasn't really changed all that much. You want this like nail-biting tension that kind of escalates until the final scenes, and this movie had it in spades. It was like, very intense to watch. Now, this was like, I believe, an hour and 15 minutes, while the 1956 version is apparently 2 hours. Is that correct? Yeah, exactly 2 hours. So 45 minutes shorter. It's very tight, no fat on it whatsoever. It just keeps things moving. There's still moments of brevity, but like for the most part, it's pretty tight and quick. I'll touch on this movie again when I rewatch the remake later down the road, because I don't remember certain like subtle details of the plot of the remake, so I'm not going to be able to fully compare as of right now. But I thought Peter Lorre's character was great. A great actor. I loved him in M. I haven't seen him in that much, actually. I should watch more Peter Lorre movies. But in the remake, I don't know if there's an analog to his character, or if it's just kind of a one-off thing where he's like this very eccentric person. I shouldn't say eccentric, but a very esoteric, idiosyncratic type of actor, character in this 1934 version. But I thought all of that was very good. Cinematography was really nice as well lit. Just nail-biting tension, like everything you want in a thriller. 1934, no less. It's very stunning. So, spoiler section here. Again, I can't remember exactly how the climax works for the 1956 version. I remember it still hinges around like an opera or a concert performance. You have the Que Sera Sera element in there as well. Again, I don't remember exactly how that functions. I think it ties in more with trying to locate the daughter, which is not the case in this original version. But that moment of the mom taking the rifle and having this callback to the skeet shooting thing that she did not win in the opening scene of the movie, and now she, gets the guy, saves her daughter. It's like, for 1934, that's like, just like freaking sugar right in the veins. That's like borderline diabetes. I mean, I can see why people at the time were just like, oh, this is great. Just great storytelling, great filmmaking, and just very potent for the time, I believe. I thought that the element of like the weird church was interesting. The element of the dad being kind of holed up with the daughter for the last act of the movie, kind of sneaking around the place, was interesting. My one criticism was I felt like the crazy shootout, like Django Unchained level shootout, was like out of place, and I think the pacing and the tone is ironed out better in the remake. But as it went on, I'm like, this is kind of fun. This is like entertaining to watch, like this crazy shootout happen on this street, even though it was like a sudden gear shift when I first watched it. So yeah, all in all, I think The Man Who Knew Too Much, the original, has some strengths over the remake. But again, I'll comment on this when I watch the remake. But great acting from pretty much everybody. Peter Lorre stole the show here. Decent pacing for the most part, and just a very entertaining thriller for 1934. So, good stuff. Okay, just watched movie number 4, The 39 Steps. Fantastic. Really good. I like it more than the original, The Man Who Knew Too Much. Shares some similarities, as far as like, I don't want to give too much spoilers in the non-spoiler section here, but basically this idea of an innocent, bystander kind of getting roped into something a little bit bigger than himself, and it has a somewhat similar climax as well. They definitely share some similarities. So this was in 1935. It was a year after The Man Who Knew Too Much. I will say I have to commend it for decent pacing, really fun, entertaining to watch. It maybe starts off a little bit like confusing, but you can get your footing pretty quickly. Robert Donat, however you say his name, fantastic as Richard Hannay. Did a great job. Madeline Carroll, really great as Pamela as well. Pretty good acting all the way through. Cinematography, some interesting stuff. There was a nice shot where they do, because back then they were doing all kinds of, pretty much every vehicle shot was done with like rear projector, because they couldn't actually like mount stuff on cars and have it work well, especially with having a sound stage. You need to like mic the people up properly. And there's a nice shot in the movie where like the camera like rotates as people are in the car, and it like pushes to the back corner of the car, and then it cuts to like an actual like moving shot of the car physically going away down the road it's supposed to go. And I'm like, that's pretty cool for 1935. What else to talk about before getting into the spoiler section? It's funny. This was based off of a novel by John Buchan, I believe. John Buchan. And it is one of the first of 5 novels featuring Richard Hannay, an all-action hero with a stiff upper lip and a miraculous knack for getting himself out of tricky situations. Very entertaining, and I'm almost tempted to read these novels, because like the dialogue is very good. It's very quick-witted and funny, and almost self-aware in some ways. It's very entertaining in that fact. But I will say there are moments, because it says miraculous knack for getting out of sticky situations, there are a few like Deus Ex Machina moments of like, oh, that could have not, that probably wouldn't have happened that way in real life. That was lucky. That was, the story needing to move on, so something lucky happens. But anyway, spoiler section here. I will say the element of the climax being very similar to The Man Who Knew Too Much kind of took me out of it a bit. I like the climax in this a little bit better, though. I like the culmination of him saying like, what are the 39 steps, and like the guy like impulsively responds and has to be killed for it. What else to talk about? I like the aspect of him taking the coat of the religious farmer, and when he gets shot by Professor Jordan, the hymn book stopping the there's a Bible or a hymn book stopping the bullet. I thought that was a really nice touch, although the farmer did not have a nice touch for his wife. Ooh, that's bad. What else to talk about? I can't think of all that much that's really spoilery here. I think that I liked the simplicity of the espionage plot. It wasn't like I've seen some film noirs and even like modern things like the Bourne movies. Sometimes Bond movies and Mission Impossible movies dip into this, where you're just like, you just get lost in the double crossing and like 3 or 4 parties at play trying to double cross each other and get in each other's way. And this is just very simple. It's literally, you had this spy who is trying to intercept some data, or stop some data from leaving the country, and this guy just kind of gets roped into it and has to clear his name because of it. And it's like just super simple, straightforward. I liked the thriller aspects of that, like very, boots on the ground kind of escape, fleeing, kind of like a Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid vibe, where it's just like you never, like, it goes from highs and lows of thriller energy of like, ooh, we're on a big train escape and then we run into this house, we have to like hide under some floorboards or something. I really dig that kind of escape thriller feel, because it's very entertaining, very interesting. This was very good. I have nothing but good things to say about this. I like it more than The Man Who Knew Too Much. By a fair bit, actually. The Man Who Knew Too Much is fine, but this is like just way more in my wheelhouse of just like nice, fun popcorn kind of movie, and that's what I come to expect from Hitchcock. And man, he was really like, it's just been like an improvement after an improvement with each of these movies. It's gotten better with every single film. And I'm interested to see what Sabotage is like next. I know nothing about that one. I know nothing about Young and Innocent coming after that. And then I have seen The Lady Vanishes, and then we'll be getting more into stuff that I have seen after that too. So 39 Steps, fantastic movie. Can't recommend it enough. One of his early highlights for sure. Okay, so this is Sabotage, movie number 5, I believe. Let me take a quick look here. This was 1936. Yes, film number 5. Not as good as the 39 Steps, I will say that much. It's still quite enjoyable though, and this is like he's been hitting on very specific themes that he'll kind of revisit in later things, especially like with Sabotage. Very similar motifs that I felt from Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, stuff like that. Sabotage is very set based. It's based very primarily on a specific location, and what operates out of that location, being this fruit stand that operates next to a movie theater that has an apartment in the back. And that's like very key to the whole plot of the thing. Before I get into the spoiler section, I'll say I think the acting was fine. Acting was good. Lead guy was charming. The wife, Sydney, I don't remember her name. She did a good job. The kid, Stevie, he did a good job. The husband did a good job as well. The acting was fine. Cinematography, nothing amazing, but still quite solid in the 30s oeuvre, so to speak. The plot was pretty straightforward, pretty simple, easy to follow. It hit on similar things that I want to say, not The Man Who Knew Too Much. Blackmail. It had a very similar ending to Blackmail in a very specific way, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. All in all, before I get into the spoilers, I'll say it's solid. If it's worth checking out. It's a fun movie. I would say The Lodger has been my least favorite of all so far, just because it doesn't really have that Hitchcock itch, that drive that makes you want to keep watching. That worked as a fine thriller on its own. But ever since then, like Blackmail forward, it's had that Hitchcock thriller charm and spice that just keeps you watching and keeps you really interested. And Sabotage definitely has that as well. I don't think it's probably on par with like The Man Who Knew Too Much. I like it more than Blackmail, but I don't think it's as good as 39 Steps. So, spoiler section here. I will say, the ending, I think, like I said, comparing it to Blackmail, has that motif of like someone just barely confessing a crime, or like things could have gone like south much quicker, but there was like very ostentatious Deus Ex Machina moment where like their name got cleared, right? That was very Blackmail-esque. I think it worked a little bit better here. It was a little more dramatic here. Like I said, I loved the use of the set and the very specific location. I believe this was adapted from a Joseph Conrad story. I don't know how close it is to whatever it is that he wrote. I think it was based on it. I don't know if it was adapted per se. But yeah, that thing of the apartment being behind this movie theater was very intriguing. And the movie starts out on a very intriguing note as well. That's something I've liked about these past few Hitchcock movies, is how it almost starts in the middle of things and you're kind of left to kind of piece things together as you're viewing it. And I'm really curious to know if that's a Hitchcock touch or if that was just like part of the story to begin with and he liked that element and wanted to adapt it. I don't know. That's beyond my pay grade. But yeah, I love the sets. The acting was pretty solid. Kind of surprising to have the kid die in an explosion. And I kind of wish that, I mean, I liked in Blackmail, like her stoic kind of like, reserved, like inner turmoil at murdering someone. But it's, here, I wish there was a little bit more. She just seemed a little cold and detached, which works fine. I felt like they could have really hit on that a little bit more, especially since it's like your younger brother just blew up in a bus. What else? Yeah, acting was good. Not a whole lot to say on this one. It's pretty simple. Do I recommend it? Yes. Is it better than 39 Steps? No. And it was a quick movie too. I think it was an hour 17. Next one is going to be Young and Innocent, which also goes by, what, a girl something, I don't remember. But that's a year later, and that will be the penultimate one before we get to Lady Vanishes, which is his last British movie I'll be watching. And I have seen The Lady Vanishes, and I'm very eager to watch it again because I remember loving it on my first watch. My first and only watch. So next one is Young and Innocent, 1937. Okay, everyone, this is the video for Young and Innocent, or as it's known in America, is that right? The Girl Was Young, which is a terrible title. Like, a Young and Innocent is hardly okay for the description of what goes on in this movie, but The Girl Was Young is just abominable. It's like saying Interstellar is like corn problem. It does nothing to describe what happens in the film aside from one small element. So this was a weird one. It had a lot of strengths and it had a few weaknesses that kind of gave it some like speed bumps in terms of pacing, plot, plausibility, a variety of things there. Yeah, I don't quite know how to talk about this one. So this was 37. It was 1 year after Sabotage. How do I talk about this before the spoiler section? I will say it's a step down in terms of acting from the 39 Steps. It's probably on par with Sabotage, which was the previous one I watched. The chemistry between the two actors is okay, is fine. I would say that this was an instance of there being very little charming dialogue. It was written by, the dialogue was written by Gerald Savory and then Alma Reville, who was Hitchcock's wife, longtime wife, married in 26, and then up until he died in 80, was the continuity, which I don't know exactly what that means. But then the screenplay had like 3 people on it, so who knows. Yeah, the dialogue was not as... It was fine, it just wasn't on the par of the last few movies. It was not on the par of Man Who Knew Too Much, 39 Steps, or Sabotage. But it served the purpose fine. Again, it was a nice case, like with the 39 Steps, a nice case of this like thriller movie of like being on the run for something you did not do. This is very much in common with the 39 Steps in that way. 39 Steps did it better, but this one had somewhat interesting plot elements that were sometimes ridiculous, which I'll get into in the spoiler section. But it culminates in a very satisfying way. It starts in like an odd fashion, in media res, is that the right word? But then it concludes in a very satisfying way. But along the way, it's a little rickety. And I'll admit, I watched this in 3 sittings. I partially outside my control, but it's under 90 minutes, like an hour 22 or something like that. But I ended up watching it in 3 sittings. It's not super entertaining. It's kind of part of the problem. The pacing is steady, but it's like very minute things that happen, and they don't necessarily carry a very serious threat or sense of urgency through the whole thing. Like compared to 39 Steps and Sabotage, this is not entertaining. But as its own movie, and even as a Hitchcock movie, it's fine. Probably on the level of... It's not as good as The Man Who Knew Too Much, is it? I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm going to go ahead and get into spoilers here before going into the closing thoughts. So obviously we have to talk about the blackface, right? The culmination with the blackface, which is a form of plot detail because they wipe the blackface off the guy and they see who it is. It's really funny to see blackface now, because it's just like, oh, what the ultimate cultural faux pas. The reveal of the murderer with the crane shots was so cool. Just the panning in, and like if you're paying close attention to this whole story, it just pushes in on the guy, and you're like, oh, it's the guy from the opening scene, and we haven't seen the whole movie. That's pretty cool. And realizing like the roundabout thread following back to who had the coat, that was really nice. Some of the weirder elements are things like the birthday party, people noticing like minuscule details, apparently not even like pursuing any leads outside of the main character, Robert. Sorry, I had to look at the Wikipedia. Was a little odd because like they would have caught the ex-husband right away, or at least like held him in questioning right away, you would think. But you had this red herring of Robert this whole time. And like the idea of like, if only I could get my coat and show them the belt. I'm like, really? That will do it? That's your diamond in the rough, ace in the hole thing you're trying to pursue here? It's whatever. There's a lot of like rickety parts. Speaking of rickety parts, fantastic miniature section in this movie, which I thought was highly entertaining. I'll put it over the top of me speaking here if I'm able to do it and I remember to do it in post, but man, just next level. It's watching this like in 1080 on my 4K TV, just seeing these like miniatures in the cars and with the train, I'm like, this is fantastic, great. So aside from the blackface and the horrible miniatures, this was okay. It was shoddy. It had a few downfalls, few pitfalls, some inconsistencies, but some of the heights that it reaches are as high as some of the previous movies like 39 Steps, Man Who Knew Too Much, and Sabotage. So solid all in all. And I have seen The Lady Vanishes, which is the one coming next. I will rewatch it for this review video. But needless to say, I do love that one quite a bit. So all in all, I'll probably say this again after Lady Vanishes. What a great British era. I know that there was a myriad of other movies mixed in here. I don't know how bad they were because I'm only watching the good ones. But we got 27, 29, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38. Pretty solid lineup from Hitchcock coming out of the British era. And then just boom, right into some great stuff in the Hollywood era. Lady Vanishes, if I remember correctly, will probably be my favorite of the British era. I remember it being like so much fun and just a lot of very entertaining. I like his train movies, which is part of the reason I enjoyed the 39 Steps. Anytime there's a train in a Hitchcock movie, it's bound to be just fantastic. I loved Strangers on a Train. You have a train in North by Northwest. It's just, you got it, man. It's good. Anyway, that's Young and Innocent. It's fine. It's better than The Lodger and Blackmail. I'll put it that way. It might be better than The Man Who Knew Too Much. Kind of depends on what you're in the mood for, I suppose. I think, is it better than Sabotage? I don't know. Maybe not. I think Sabotage was tighter. I don't know. I've been rambling for a long time. 39 Steps and Lady Vanishes are probably going to take the cake for best of the British era for me, though. So, Lady Vanishes, 1938. That one's next. Till then. Okay, so I have seen the next two movies in my list, Lady Vanishes and Rebecca. I will talk about each one in succession in this recording here. So The Lady Vanishes was Hitchcock's last British film, if I am not mistaken. Great movie. Fantastic movie. This is at least the last British movie of Hitchcock. Is one of his most renowned of the British era as well. But it's the last British Hitchcock movie I saw. It's fantastic. I saw it probably dare I say, a decade ago. I think I saw it before I was married, watched it with my parents, and then I watched it again for this video review. Also, my wife joined me in the viewing session as well. She very much enjoyed it. It's slightly less enjoyable the second time through you watch it, because there's just this magic that happens when you're watching it the first time, where all of your expectations are sort of undercut here and there. It's just a really fun movie, and it's also very fun on your second viewing as well. So to classify The Lady Vanishes, I would say it's sort of in that murder mystery kind of, I suppose you would say thriller in this case, sort of story, kind of happening around the era of Agatha Christie as well, although this is adapted from a book called The Wheel Spins by Ethel Lena White, and that came out in 1936, and this was 1938, so it was very quick production on getting it adapted into a film. Michael Redgrave is fantastic as the lead actor. Margaret Lockwood is fantastic as the lead actress. What struck me about this movie, this is pre-spoilers, I promise. What struck me about this movie is how it introduces the comic relief characters more prominently than the lead actor and actress earlier in the movie. Like it starts with the comic relief, and then it gets to the lead couple. And then it ends in a way that you would kind of not expect. Like if you're familiar with Murder on the Orient Express, you can be like, okay, I kind of see where this might be going, and then it just doesn't do that. It ends like this is the Hitchcock movie that Tarantino never made. It's kind of abstract in its structure as far as the standard murder mystery goes. It's very entertaining in that way. I would say that the cinematography was pretty decent. Nothing absolutely incredible, but there's something about this movie that just really stands out. I think it's a good combination of comedy mixed with mystery, mixed with thriller. And there's just always something being juggled in the air that keeps you entertained and focused on the movie. There's really like hardly any flaws about this one either. It's really, really pleasant and fun to watch. If I had to get into a spoiler territory, I would say much like the 39 Steps. Is that right? There was something I was going to compare this to. I don't exactly know what it was. The culmination of this movie is very satisfying. Hitchcock has this. It is the 39 Steps. No, it's Young and Innocent. That's right. I remember what I was going to say now. So spoilers slightly for Young and Innocent, very slightly. What I love about Hitchcock, and I don't know if he changes this from what he's adapting from, because as far as I know, he hasn't written his own stuff, or he never wrote his own screenplays. It was never fully original material. Let me put it that way. With Young and Innocent, or The Girl Was Young, it starts on a nugget of plot, a nugget of story, and then it just kind of leaves that on the back burner for most of the movie until this great crane shot reveals that first part of the plot again, coming into the main fold of the story. And you're like, oh, that's okay. So that's the person. Oh, I'm tying it all together in my head. Lady Vanishes also exhibits such a thing, because I guess we're in the spoilers for Lady Vanishes. I realized, this is the second time I've seen this movie. I did not catch this the first time through, that the guitar player is transmitting this tune to the female spy, and that's why he was killed. I never thought about that. And even the second viewing, I'm like, why does this guy get killed? Why is the guitar player killed? I don't understand that. That doesn't make sense. Like, why would you accidentally kill someone who's not your target? And then I realized, oh, she's transmitting the information. I think that's why I got it confused with 39 Steps, because 39 Steps has a spy transmitting coded information across a physical distance. But yeah, Lady Vanishes also does that Hitchcockian thing, which he has sort of sculpted for himself at this point of introducing something that's curious and interesting, but you don't understand, and explain it finally in the last part after not touching it for a long time, which is very difficult to do as a writer, as a storyteller. But Hitchcock, like, I think that's part of the magic of what he was able to do. And Lady Vanishes was like crazy successful. And it was part of American producers David O. Selznick's belief that Hitchcock indeed had a future in Hollywood cinema, as it says here on the Wikipedia. And that's kind of what kind of pulled him over. And after seeing this British chunk here, I can see the strengths of The Man Who Knew Too Much, 39 Steps, Lady Vanishes, and to a lesser degree, Sabotage and Young and Innocent playing a part in just this powerhouse that was Hitchcock. And people across the pond realizing, like, hey, do you want to come, like, make Hollywood pictures? Like, you're amazing. Just, you know, if I'm to give brief thoughts here about the British era in general, Lodger, barely recognizable as a Hitchcock movie. It's just a fine, silent thriller. It works fine in that way. There's almost zero Hitchcock fingerprint on it. Blackmail has some, and I commend it as a quasi-silent film, but it's very like prototype Hitchcock at that point. Man Who Knew Too Much, you're in full-blown Hitchcock territory at that point. 1934, he's showing all of his signs. 39 Steps is magnificent. Sabotage, very entertaining, very interesting sets, and I love plots that are very set-driven. Young and Innocent is entertaining in its own way, like I mentioned in the part of that video. It has hits and misses, but the hits are great. And then Lady Vanishes is just like a masterpiece of murder mystery fun and comedy. Just really great. Like, these 7 movies, none of them were bad. None of them were bad. I didn't expect them to be bad. But like, I'm super happy that I have seen all of these. Lodger I could have dropped. Like, if I was to tell anybody who's interested in watching all of Hitchcock, I would say, like, if The Lodger doesn't look interesting, you can skip that. Like, it's interesting in its own right, but in a Hitchcock context, it's whatever. It's not that important. Blackmail, very compelling in a historical context, though. And then 3 through 7 of these movies, just good stuff. And that leads into the Hollywood era. The Hollywood era, which starts with film number 8 on our list here, Rebecca, 1940. I love Rebecca. Rebecca is obviously fantastic. I saw this is the 3rd time I've seen this movie. I saw it today. I saw it once with my parents. Shortly after that, I watched it again, probably a year or 2 later, with my girlfriend at the time, now wife. And then I saw it again today. Yeah, this is good. This is good. There's honestly, like, hardly any flaws. There's like 0 flaws with this movie. Things to commend would be, like, obviously Olivier is fantastic. It's hard to see him in a not fantastic role. Joan Fontaine, really great. I forgot how good she was in this movie. Really great performance, and we'll see her again in something. Is it Suspicion? Gosh, what was it? Yeah, Suspicion in 1941. I don't remember if I've seen that one. I don't recall. There was some early Hitchcock movie with Cary Grant that involves like a key shoved into the grate of a wine cellar or something like that. That could be, I mean, you don't need to comment because I've already seen all the movies by the time I'm posting this. That could be the movie I'm thinking of. I don't know. But I don't think I've seen Joan Fontaine in other movies, but could be wrong. Could be Suspicion that I'm thinking of. Because I saw that once, I believe. Joan Fontaine was great. All the actors, honestly. George Sanders, great performance as well. Same with, hold on, I'm checking here. Who did... Judith Anderson as Mrs. Danvers. Great performance there as well. Everyone did a really great job. The thing about Rebecca, it's a very interesting first American film for Hitchcock. It's a quasi gothic, like romantic mystery. It's really interesting. Like Hitchcock hadn't done something like this yet, and I don't know if he does anything quite like this again. Like of the ones I'm looking at here, I have seen maybe Suspicion. It could be Spellbound. I don't know, or Notorious. It's hard to say. I've seen Rope, seen Strangers on a Train, Dial M for Murder, Rear Window, the remake of The Man Who Knew Too Much, The Wrong Man, Vertigo, North by Northwest, Psycho, Birds. That's all I've seen of the future movies here. So if there's another gothic one, I don't know about it. But he handles it very well because like it has this ethos of that gothic, Edgar Allan Poe vibe kind of in the air, but it doesn't stay there. It wants to kind of rest in the acting of Joan and Lawrence in this movie. It doesn't really want to like wallow in the like, oh, and that I love gothic stories for that reason. I love the claustrophobia of a gothic tale told in what's supposed to be this elaborate mansion, but it feels very claustrophobic. Like that's a whole video essay in and of itself. The framework of a gothic story in that way. But that's not really where this movie wants to linger. It's just kind of that like there's plenty of uncomfortable moments in this movie. Part of that's the great acting. Part of that is like really nice dialogue and storytelling as well. But with Rebecca, part of the appeal of it not only is the acting, but the plot unraveling and the characters' motivations seem completely logical and are satisfying and make sense every time it unfolds, and then it concludes on a very logical note, and you're just like, okay, I feel it's hard to watch Rebecca and feel like you missed out on something. It's a very satisfying movie to watch, because you feel like you've gotten everything you need to get out of it. Like I said, characters' motivations unravel and conclude in very satisfying ways that make a lot of sense, and the plot is like everyone is sort of like ready to be resolved. It's just the plot has to happen, and it's really just Rebecca's character being fully exposed to everyone in order for them to it's really just a movie about people interacting with a very enigmatic, mysterious woman, and once the woman's character traits and motives are fully revealed, everyone has their chance to finally respond to it, and then the movie is over, and it's like it makes complete sense. To get into spoilers about Rebecca, I would say something spoilery. It makes sense for Mrs. Danvers to die in the fire. That's all fine. I think the whole plot of like the judicial stuff near the end, the last 30 minutes, is a tad slow, but it makes complete sense. And like the, justice system at the time, is it set in America? I don't recall. Manderley. Where is Manderley? Southwestern England. So it's set in England still. Because it is a book by an English author, Daphne Maurier. So, where was I going with this? I completely lost my train of thought. Great. I'm not even going to edit this out. These are going to be so minimally edited, you're going to be amazed. I'm just going to completely abandon that train of thought. I don't think I had much to say there anyway. There's not a whole lot in the spoiler territory on this. I feel like once you get the reveal from Olivier as to the actual truth of Rebecca's death, everything like makes a lot of sense, and that's when things get more and more thriller-esque. I wouldn't say that this movie is necessarily a thriller. It's classified as one, but it's definitely not one. At least for the first, hour or something. For the last 30 minutes is the most what's going to happen with George Fortescue Maximilian de Winter, so to speak. But Anyway, I suppose that's it for Rebecca. Fantastic movie. If you love gothic Poe kind of stuff, but also enjoy like some nice, well-written dialogue in the romance and drama genres, this is fantastic. It should be seen. It's not my favorite Hitchcock movie because it's kind of a black sheep. Like I said, it's a gothic story, and I don't know of any other gothic stories from Hitchcock. But he handled it very well, and it won him an Oscar for Best Picture, Best Cinematography. And I think it's the only movie directed by Hitchcock to win cinematography, if I'm not mistaken. And the cinematography was great. Like there's a sequence, I'm out of the spoiler territory, but there's a sequence panning over this, seaside house that hasn't been touched for a long time, kind of recreating a scene with no one in the shot. And it's very compelling and interesting, even though what's happening on the screen is very dull. But yeah, all in all, Rebecca, fantastic. I'm excited to watch Foreign Correspondent next. Know nothing about it. I'm interested to finally get into some Hollywood Hitchcock that I have not seen. And I want to see if it's different from British Hitchcock is kind of my big thing. Because Rebecca, like I said, a black sheep, and hard to kind of gauge his shift into the Hollywood scene by. But anyway, that's Rebecca. I'll return to you guys again with Foreign Correspondent.
Okay, this is movie number 9, Foreign Correspondent. I apologize for my voice and my appearance. I am sick, but that's not going to stop me from making this video. So, yeah, after watching Rebecca, we have Foreign Correspondent, which is a movie I had not seen prior. Is a lot of fun. Not quite to the level of like Lady Vanishes or some of his other past ones that are just really quick and witty. This one is played a little bit more straight, a little bit more serious. It's also 2 hours long. It's the longest movie I've seen from him yet, I believe. And there's just a lot of plot. There's a lot of events that occur in it. I watched it in 2 sittings, and it almost felt like I was watching 2 full movies, because I had to like look back at the plot of what had happened before. I was like, dang, I thought this was like a past movie I'd seen. Joel McCrea does a great job. George Sanders is back again. He does a fantastic job. I had just seen Joel McCrea in Sullivan's Travels, that was called, a few months ago. And he's just a really nice actor. I really enjoy his delivery and all that. Lorraine Day did a good job too. There is a certain element of comedy to this, but it's not. It's a little more subdued, except for the George Sanders' last name, which I thought was really funny, and I had never seen anything quite like that before in any story. Yeah, it's a very easy to follow plot if you're paying attention. It's just one of those movies where if you like stop looking or listening for like 30 seconds, you're going to be lost, because there's a lot packed in here. But what I found really interesting was this movie came out like literally around the time that the events of the movie were happening in real life. It opened on August 16th, 1940. And the movie ends. I don't want to spoil it just yet. With a certain thing that happens, like basically a week before. Yeah, it was like a week before the actual events happening in the end of the movie happened in real life, which was really ostentatious. But to get into any kind of spoilers here, I liked the windmill thing. I liked how it started out very kind of like conspiracy-esque, where it's just like Joel McCrea being like, I just want to kind of follow what I think is happening, and kind of stumbles upon this secret plot. Gets a little muddy in the middle, going through trying to like do the kidnap plan. That was a whole ordeal. The whole like pushing the guy off the tower, that was a whole ordeal. It kind of picks up towards the end with the airplane scene. I gotta say, I really liked that shot of the dummy falling into the canopy, and then it pans down and it cuts to George Sanders falling through. That was like an amazing shot. I thought that was so funny. But yeah, ending with like Fisher, you know, sacrificing himself to let the others live, and then that bombing happening in London, and literally movie opens August 16th, and Germany began bombing London August 24th. Like, what are the chances of that? But yeah, Foreign Correspondent, it is a very solid movie. It doesn't really have a ton of Hitchcock vibe to it because it's not. It's, I mean, I would say call it a thriller. It feels like with his spy movies, I don't know. There's something kind of different about it. Like, I feel like his more claustrophobic, like drama, psychological stuff has more of his coloring and flavor to it, whereas stuff like this could arguably have been directed by almost anybody. But it's quite a nice movie. I'm glad that I saw it. Next one that we'll be going to is Suspicion, which I think I have seen before, so I will see you there. Okay, video number 10. This is Suspicion. This is one that I thought I had seen before, but I was wrong. It was Notorious. This one was pretty interesting. It was quite good. There are parts of it that I don't really want to spoil in this first part, but I definitely need to talk about. I would say it's a really interesting movie because it starts out as just this basic romance, and then it just devolves into like another genre. It's really fascinating to watch. This is Cary Grant's first Hitchcock movie, because I know he's in Notorious. He is in something else, North by Northwest, maybe others that I don't know about. Did a great job. Joan Fontaine is back as well, from Rebecca, almost unrecognizable in this role, and I think she won an Academy Award for this movie as well. She did a fantastic job. Yeah, it's very compelling front to back. It starts a little, I don't want to say like shaky, but you're just kind of not sure what kind of movie it's going to be, and then as soon as it starts its descent, so to speak, you're just like, it's really hard to not look, really hard to look away, hard to not watch. Yeah, really some interesting shots in here, some nice crane shots. Fantastic shot near the end of Cary Grant coming up the stairs. He's like in complete pitch blackness, and the cup that he's holding is like illuminated almost. Really nice shot. What else? What other things to commend? I liked the, oh gosh, what is his name? The guy who played old boy, old Bean. Gosh, what was his name? Hold on, I should have had the movie up and ready to rock. What was his name? Beaky, Nigel Bruce. Old Bean, yes. Did a fantastic job. He was in Rebecca. What was he in Rebecca? I don't remember. Oh, is he one of the people who came over? Yeah, Beatrice's husband. That's right. Interesting. So 2 people from Rebecca show up in Suspicion. Maybe even more that I don't know about. But yeah, really small, intimate, claustrophobic story. Really small, minimal cast as well. I love the use of like financial straits as a what would you call it? Inciting incident or motivating factor behind a thriller or a psychological story. Because we've all been there. We've all been in those moments of just like being in tight spots money-wise, being unsure of like what your next thing is going to do, and just feeling that feeling of like debt, which I haven't felt to like a super big degree, which I'm very thankful for, but I know many have. And it's very claustrophobic in that way. Cary Grant does a pretty good performance, I think. Joan Fontaine is great. The ending is kind of where I have a small qualm and where I think it could have been better. So I'm going to go into the spoiler section here now for the movie. So the ending of the movie here, it's devolving steadily into, you have this like Rosemary's Baby type thing with the lead actress where she's like losing all of these people she can trust. She doesn't know like who to turn to anymore. And you have that moment at the end where it seems like she's about to die. And and almost falls off of the cliff from the car, and then they stop and they have their moment of saying like, oh, I was actually going to commit suicide once I took you to your mom's house, and then like reveals being in Liverpool at the time of Beaky's death, trying to borrow on Lena's life insurance, and then she seems to be okay with it, and then there's this weird moment of like let's go home and see it all through together, and he like, no, I don't want to, and then just immediately turns around, and then the movie ends. And I'm like, this is kind of weird, not really in line with the rest of the movie. Come to find out, excuse me, sorry, I'm slightly sick. Come to find out, this is not the way that the book ended. And I'm like, oh, really? So the way the book ends, subtly different here. And Hitchcock, I really want to, it's a movie, right? The Hitchcock Truffaut thing. You know what I'm talking about, guys? Francois Truffaut. It's the book, Hitchcock / Truffaut. And it's like a big interview or something that he did, right? And did it get turned into a movie? 2015 documentary. That's what it is. That's what I was thinking of. Hitchcock was really upset that they had to change the ending. Part of it was just because Cary Grant was supposed to be like had the heroic image, and they insisted that it be changed. And in the book, I love the ending of the book that it says here. In the novel, Johnny serves his sick wife a drink which she knows to be poisoned and voluntarily gulps it down. I'm like, that's where I thought the movie was going, to some degree. In the movie, though, the drink may or may not be poisoned, and it's untouched in the morning. Another ending was considered but not used, in which Lena is writing a letter to her mother, stating that she fears Johnny's going to poison her, at which point he walks in with the milk. She finishes the letter, seals and stamps an envelope, asks Johnny to mail the letter, then drinks the milk. The final shot would have shown him leaving the house and dropping into a mailbox the letter which incriminates him, which I think is a fantastic ending. I think that's awesome. And it kind of upsets me that they didn't have the balls to go through with that. But like that in mind, knowing that other alternate kind of ending and almost having that be my own headcanon, I think this was a spectacular movie. Very claustrophobic. I love its starting as a romantic movie, a romantic drama, and immediately flipping and becoming a very claustrophobic psychological movie. And then it just descends even further into a borderline thriller. And just really interesting. Great showcase of Hitchcock's craft with genre and mood, and just adapting from apparently very solid source material. So Suspicion, quite nice. I liked it quite a bit. Next one is Saboteur. I know nothing about it. Came out the next year. Let's go. Hello everyone, welcome to movie number 11. This is Saboteur 1942. What a great movie. This was really good. A few flaws here and there. I didn't really love the pacing of the ending, which is a critique I also had with Suspicion, the movie before this. But man, overall this movie is insanely tight, very good, sets up a nice setup by a nice foundation of something like 39 Steps. Do I think 39 Steps is better than this? Maybe, but it's really close. This is a lot of fun. If you haven't seen this one, I highly recommend checking it out, and skipping the spoiler section of this part, obviously. Robert Cummings does a great job, as does Priscilla Lane. Just great acting all around. Super tight, no fat on it plot, just keeps moving. Everything that happens logically, except for maybe, like I said, parts of the end. It is really bare bones, really simple. And much like 39 Steps, this kind of attempt to, you're kind of on the lam, on the run from the law. Also like Young and Innocent to a degree. Trying to clear your name while also figuring out what it is that is occurring, this conspiracy happening around you. Yeah, just really great. I don't really have a whole lot more to say that isn't a spoiler.
honestly. I just would recommend, if you have seen 39 Steps or Young and Innocent and like that Hitchcock on the run from the law kind of movie, this does a fantastic job and is right up there with the 39 Steps. So talking about the spoilers, I really liked I love the character of oh gosh, what's his name? Mr. Martin, Uncle Philip Martin, Vaughn Glazer does a fantastic job. One of my favorite parts of the movie is his scene in the log cabin, and then naturally you got the niece Patricia kind of helping him along. She gets roped into the whole thing. Just stellar pacing, front to back, except for the end, which I would say you kind of lose the threads a little bit by the time you get to the party. There's a lot of things I feel that British Hitchcock movies would have done a little bit differently than like some of these American ones do in terms of how law enforcement and police actions are represented. A lot of the things that Barry Keane and Patricia do to avoid capture by the bad guys is sort of absurd. Like you think someone could just walk up and be in the ball and be like, "Hey, we caught you stealing some stuff. Come with us." And then it's like there's a few things that could have been ironed out, just done a little bit better. And then going up through the final part with the Statue of Liberty. It's okay. It just felt like the movie kind of was coasting on fumes for a little while. It's like an hour 40 some and change, and it probably could have been trimmed a bit, slightly. There was just a little bit too much of that. Once they get to New York, like you can just trim that a little bit. What else? I think the climax on the Statue of Liberty is fantastic. Obviously, harkens forward to North by Northwest, which has a very similar scene happen in it. But yeah, that's Saboteur. I think it is quite fantastic and certainly highly overlooked. I wouldn't say it's a lot of fun, but it's just a solid thriller, just like like very few flaws. So go check that one out if you have not seen it yet. And the next one will be Shadow of a Doubt, 1943. Okay, so this is Shadow of a Doubt. This is film number 12 on my list here, 1943. This was pretty solid. I know a lot of people really like this one, and apparently it's Hitchcock's favorite of all of his films that he's done. I didn't love it as much as some others. Namely, it's like yet again the ending just kind of like just all of a sudden just like flat lines, like just climax and then in like 2 minutes and then it's over, which might just be me I need to get used to that, and it's just the way of the movies at the time. This was pretty good though. Teresa Wright did a great job. Joseph Cotten in here, of course, famous from Citizen Kane, Gaslight, Third Man, all that great stuff. Did a really solid job here. I liked the psychological kind of drama aspect of the whole thing. I don't want to give too much away before the spoiler part, but this young girl is kind of feeling like this, what would you call it? The ennui, not depression, just like the slight nihilism of the world, and just kind of like, whatever, and then kind of coming to grips with the things that are actually important and matter when things get intense. Really interesting plot as well. It's not as like, I think the thing is, this is a more relaxed movie than a lot of his other thrillers. I never really felt on the edge of my seat, not knowing what was going to come next. It just didn't really have that potency to it, I suppose. But as like a drama, as a psychological sort of movie, talking about ideas and stuff like that, I think it's quite solid. To go into some spoilers here, like I said, I like the fact that there's this girl who's grappling with these feelings of like disillusionment and just kind of not really vibing with everybody. And her uncle comes to town and like basically scares the love of God into her. Just like as the more she interacts with him, the more she's like, I don't really vibe with what you're doing, and he's like, we're the same, we feel the same way. I think that the detective falling in love with her was like out of left field and didn't really make any sense. I don't know. Granted, like I had to pause the movie a ton as I was watching it, but I did rewind a lot to see all the stuff that I missed. And even still, I felt like the pacing of this detective falling in love with her was like, why do you hardly know her, dude? You're like, do you even live around here? But like that was like, it was okay. That was okay. The climax was a little absurd. Yeah, I don't know. The whole like, it's obvious that this guy did it from the moment you had the ring, and the ring was never put into question. And so like from that point onward, it's like, you know, he's the killer, and he makes it extremely obvious. And so I don't know. All that to say, I think this movie was solid. Best part of it, honestly, the depiction of the family. Just like people talking over each other, and like that young librarian kind of daughter is my daughter, just pedantic as hell, just constantly correcting people, and everyone's talking over each other, and I'm like, that you got that one right, Hitchcock, good job. But yeah, no, I don't have like anything against anyone who loves this movie. I could see why. It just didn't resonate with me as much as some other movies of his did. I did like I said though, that minimalized drama, psychological, introspective aspect, because lots of his movies aren't as slow as something like this. So Shadow of a Doubt, pretty solid. Next one will be Lifeboat. I have not seen this. My wife has. This is one of his movies set in like a small space, like Rope, Rear Window, Dial M for Murder, that kind of a thing. So I'm excited to see what Lifeboat has in store. Cheers. Film number 13 has been completed. This is Lifeboat from 1944. Now, like, I don't know why this is going to be a difficult one to talk about, because there's things I liked about it quite a bit. There's also things that were, I wouldn't say underwhelming. I just wasn't quite sure what kind of movie it was going to end up being. Apparently my wife had seen part of it, not the whole thing. She had watched and abandoned like 3 or 4 Hitchcock movies with her friend back in the day. And this was apparently one of them. This was good. I will call it good. And the way I'm going to talk about this makes it sound like I don't think it's good, or that it's not among his best. I do think it definitely is underrated. It was an entertaining watch front to back. What I got out of it though was kind of, I wouldn't say dated, because it's a very controversial at the time movie for a certain reason, which I will get into in the spoiler section, because I don't want to spoil much, if any, of this before I get to that section, because much like Psycho, Hitchcock likes to, at this point forward in his career, really hinge off of like reveals and complete story shifts and stuff like that. So this is one of the first ones so far where we've kind of had a moment like that in any significant way. So the premise of this movie is basically that a lifeboat is launched from a passenger vessel, which is torpedoed and sunk by a Nazi U-boat. And the movie literally takes place in its entirety in this lifeboat. I'm trying to think, who was it in the beginning? What's her name? Connie Porter, Tallulah Bankhead, who did a fantastic job. All the actors in this movie did a fantastic job, I'll say that. And it has, what's his name? Is it Stanley? Yeah, Hume Cronin, it was his name, who was in Shadow of a Doubt, movie before this one. Actually, apparently his first movie, come to look at it here. And then 3 movies later, he's in Lifeboat. Let me look real quick. Is he in anything I'm going to watch next? It doesn't look like it. Yeah, those are the only 2 Hitchcock movies that I can see, or at least the ones that I'm watching that he's been in. I enjoyed his, I don't know if I said this in the Shadow of a Doubt video, I liked his delivery in Shadow of a Doubt. Is very kind of like nerdy, geeky, kind of like disconnected from society sort of character. And he does a great job here too. I really enjoyed him. And also, John Hodiak is basically like Billy Zane's dad. He looked just like Billy Zane. Anyway, getting off topic. Premise of the movie is you got this like erudite woman on this lifeboat, and then more people get brought onto the lifeboat, and then by the end of the movie, they're basically just trying to survive and get help. And it's very much a survival movie, a limited setting movie, which Hitchcock has done a variety of, like Dial M for Murder and Rope, both of which I've seen, both of which are fantastic. And Rear Window as well, obviously. The pacing is good. The plot keeps moving. With some Hitchcock movies, of which I would call this one, there's like weird like plot nuances and details, like the whole plot hinging on like an item or a concept or like something very kind of esoteric and idiosyncratic, can make the plot and the pacing feel a little stunted or awkward at times, or just oddly specific. I hope that makes sense. This movie does that occasionally, but overall I think the pacing is quite good. The payoff isn't amazing. It's a much more nuanced, kind of like low-key payoff. And with a lot of Hitchcock's movies, especially these early ones, I can't ever get a really good sense of where it's trying to lead. Because even though they're very kind of popcorn movies in a certain sense with the thriller aspects, they usually end on a very subdued, introspective kind of note. It's almost like a nosedive in the ending with a lot of these movies, as I've said in previous videos. I will get into the spoiler section here. With the German getting on board the boat, I didn't understand why he didn't just start speaking English right away to pretend like he was another passenger. Instead, he pretended like he was he didn't pretend, he acted like he was a German, pretending to be a crew member, and then like immediately gets found out to be the captain, and then reveals that he can speak English. So it's like his character was very confusing to me, like his motivations, and that's kind of part of the plot as well. What is the line that it says here? What do you do with people like that? People like Willie, like just not understanding their motivations. So I don't know. The German character was just kind of like hit and miss for me. I couldn't quite tell what he was up to, what he was trying to get at. Maybe there's a deeper thing to think about that I'm not considering. But as it stands, I don't really know. The character of the German is really odd to me. And it ends on a really odd note too, like a really weird climax, like just kind of a fake out climax, of like, oh, there's the thing, oh, it's going away, oh, climax, and then we're okay. I don't know. I watched it in 2 sittings. I saw the last like 25 minutes just a little bit ago. Saw the rest of it, first part of it yesterday. But like I couldn't get like a good, like, aside from Gus's character, who I thought that was handled very well, very tragic as well. I couldn't get like a really good, intricate read of every single character. And that can be a pro or a con. I'm not quite sure yet. It's hard to tell after just watching. But like I enjoyed seeing the people kind of, to some degree, have a camaraderie. And then as soon as they realize they're going to be rescued, like their old ways kick back in. That's a really interesting aspect to the ending of the movie. So yeah, spoilers done, I think. This was good. It's really hard to kind of critique it or rate it because it's kind of a black sheep for Hitchcock because it was his first limited setting movie. He'll do Rope 4 years later, and then Dial M for Murder and Rear Window 8 years after that, actually. No, 6 years after that. So this was his first kind of attempt at it. It was a story from Steinbeck that got adapted into a screenplay. I haven't read the Steinbeck story. Apparently Steinbeck was not a fan of the movie for various reasons. Yeah, I don't know. It's the the German aspect with it being 1944 when this came out, very interesting kind of nuance there. I don't feel like it applies as much today, because, like, you know, I didn't live in World War II, so I don't quite know how this would have hit back then. It feels like this wasn't made for someone like me who lives post World War II, but I don't know. Yeah, this was fine. This was engaging. It was entertaining. I'll say that much. If you have not watched it, I would recommend it. I just don't really have a whole lot to say on it because I don't really know quite what taste it has left in my mouth. Like I said, kind of a black sheep in a lot of ways for Hitchcock. So that's that. Next movie is going to be Spellbound, which I think I have seen, or is it Notorious? I have not seen Spellbound from what it looks like. Notorious, that's the one with the key in the wine cellar. I mean, it doesn't matter if I'm asking these rhetorically because I've already filmed all these, so you don't need to tell me anything. I will know by the time I watch the movie. But we do have, it looks like Ingrid Bergman here, and then who is in Notorious? Ingrid Bergman as well. So 2 Ingrid Bergmans in a row for 45-46. We'll go into Rope, which I have seen, and then Stage Fright, which I haven't. So really excited to get out of the 40s, get into like his really fascinating 50s work, of which there is a good solid chunk. So yes, Spellbound, sorry. Spellbound is next. Oh, haircut. Wow, he really did it. So this is movie number 14, Spellbound. Pretty good. It, I don't know. It, how do I say this? It had a lot of strengths to it. A lot. I wouldn't say it had pitfalls. It was just kind of like things kind of baked in that sort of made it not as, I wouldn't say, I think it was the best it could be for what it was trying to do. But there were some like weird like speed bumps here and there. So the premise of the movie is that there's this psychoanalyst, female psychoanalyst who works at a hospital, and like a mental hospital, I guess you could say. And a new head of the hospital comes in, and she falls in love with him, Gregory Peck, and he starts exhibiting like dissociative amnesia, like he thinks he's someone else and has forgotten his past. And that's all I'll say about the movie before I get into the spoilers. It's a slow movie. It's almost 2 hours long. And that's not a bad thing. I would just say, like, if you haven't seen this yet, going into it, like, you need to be kind of aware of the pacing of this thing. It's, I wouldn't say slow, it's just very deliberate. There's not like any action at all, honestly. There's moments of kind of like evading authorities here and there, but it's mostly just like a mystery of like what happened to this guy, what's going on with him. The acting was great. I think Ingrid Bergman did a great job. She'll actually be in the next movie that I will watch, Notorious, which is one I have seen before. I couldn't remember if Suspicion or Notorious was the early Cary Grant Hitchcock I saw. It was Notorious, though. I hadn't seen Suspicion before. But Ingrid Bergman did a great job. Gregory Peck as well. Just always like fantastic acting in every single Hitchcock movie. There hasn't been anyone where I've been like, they kind of phoned it in. Maybe Sabotage to a small degree, here and there. A few of the early ones, but like it's just been like knocked out of the park 95% of the time by all of these actors. They do a fantastic job. What else to say about this movie before going into spoilers? At first I thought that it was like just a little too long in terms of like, I felt like there was an extra act that didn't need to be there, like an epilogue. But as things kind of came to fruition, that made more sense and I was fine with it. The plot moves along at a decent clip. There's a few things that seem a little like, I wouldn't say absurd or ridiculous, but like sometimes it's a lot loftier than maybe like a grounded solid thriller should be, because it's like they're psychiatrists trying to help somebody, and so they have to like interpret dreams and stuff. There's a fantastic dream sequence where a guy is recounting a dream he had while he was under the effects of, what was it, bromine? I can't recall. Something like that. Something that put him under... I'm trying to read here, and I don't remember where it says. Hold on. Can I see it? Can I see it? No, it's not here. Okay. Anyway, I think it was some like horse sedative or something. I could be wrong. The dream sequence was really fascinating. One of the best parts of the movie, arguably, and then how it ties into the plot is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's still a little absurd because it's like, oh, this represents that and this represents that, and it's like, are you just saying that because it's the plot, or like, is this actually how psychoanalysts work? I don't know. But it was more or less effective. So, spoilers here. Now, Gregory Peck's character, I felt, moved through, like, as the movie went along, like the thing of, oh, I slid down a thing and pushed my brother off and he got freaking impaled on the fence, was like, okay, wow. But then, like, how that tied into the actual story of what happened to Dr. Edwards, and how, like, that, which ended up tying back to the beginning of the movie, which is Murchison being forced into retirement because of an absence with nervous exhaustion. I thought that was just kind of a throwaway thing to get the plot moving. Come to find out, that was kind of the big crux of the plot, the reason that all this happened. And I like the tragedy of John Ballantyne's character finally kind of having like some sort of like fulfillment or culmination. Just like the tragedy of him accidentally killing his brother ends up basically uncovering a murder, which is, I think, like, that's really solid writing, to have like an airtight thing of like, I'm gonna to merge concepts and make the concepts interact with each other through the use of intricate details working underneath. That's very hard to do as a writer. And so I have to, I don't know if The House of Dr. Edwards, which was the book this was based off of, from 1927, actually. I don't know if it's, on that level, if the screenplay by two writers, if they had to embellish it, but just honestly, the story is one of the best parts here. If you can accept how lofty it is, because like I said, it just kind of feels like a little like, you're kind of stretching, but at the end of the day, I really like what they were able to put together. The themes interacting with each other and complementing each other was very skillfully done. So yeah, that's Spellbound. I think it is quite good. It's not one of my favorite Hitchcocks, but I think it is very commendable. And if anyone loves Hitchcock, I would very much recommend them see this, because I think some of my qualms with it are because I'm a very nitpicky, I wouldn't say nitpicky, I'm a very observant lover of filmmaker type person. And so, like, when I know the peaks that Hitchcock can get to and I don't see him reach it, I kind of want to figure out, like, why. Like, okay, why did this, like, seem like it didn't work as well? And it's like, this felt a little weird. Like, am I being crazy? You watch enough movies and you care about enough, like, art films, then you just kind of start to notice that stuff. But I think Spellbound is going to be thoroughly entertaining for any average viewer who likes Hitchcock, and I recommend it on that level. I think it was quite solid. Next one is Notorious. Like I said, I think I've seen this once. I don't remember the plot of it at all. I think it involves a key in a wine cellar and Cary Grant. That's about all I remember. And then we'll be getting into Rope, which I have seen. So yeah, Notorious is next. Hello, everyone. Welcome. This is movie number something. It's Notorious.
This was 15. Thank you, list. I didn't have it up. Yeah, I had seen this before once. Because when I was watching Suspicion, I'm like, is this the movie with the Cary Grant Hitchcock movie with the key in the wine cellar? And then I'm like, okay, no, that's Notorious. I hadn't seen Suspicion. I had seen Notorious. So this is my second watching of it. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a love story told through the backdrop of like a spy thriller, not espionage, but I like the during the World War II years. A lot of these American movies involving like the war and whatnot, I find really interesting. Like Saboteur was a really fascinating movie. Lifeboat as well, Foreign Correspondent, and then Notorious. Like I love the spy film noir thriller kind of things that Hitchcock would dabble with in these movies. Very entertaining. This do I love this? I don't think it's perfect. I know a lot of people. It was Roger Ebert's favorite Hitchcock movie, and I will say, like, Cary Grant, one of the best actors of his generation. Ingrid Bergman, possibly one of the best Hitchcock actresses, goes head to head with Grace Kelly in my mind. She was fantastic in Spellbound. She was fantastic in this. And while I did love Joan Fontaine in the two movies she was in, there's something about Ingrid that's very down to earth, yet still has that like magic kind of, on-screen beauty. And I think Grace Kelly has a similar aspect as well. It's just like I love Grace Kelly in Rear Window, because even though it's like that's the epitome of like Hollywood actress, she's so like down to earth and helping out Jimmy Stewart in Rear Window. But anyway, this movie, while I do have a couple problems with it, like I said, I like that it's a love story told over the backdrop of something a little more bigger. Because while you could say the movie is about this, undercover agent sort of plot in Rio de Janeiro, which is a fantastic setting for the movie, I will say. It's mostly about the love between these two people. A few spoiler things to mention here real quick. The stuff that I didn't really vibe with, honestly, like everything about this movie is pretty solid except for a couple small things, like the key. The key, it kind of bugs me a little bit because like they take the key off and then they have no plan to get it back on. So obviously you're going to be found out at some point. Like that was a little frustrating. What else? I like the final scene, the walking down the stairs. There's a lot of tension in the room. A lot of, things not wanting to be discovered. And I just love that final shot of the car pulling away and then going up to the door and then the end. Really nice finale there. What else to say that's really spoilery? I don't know. I think that's about it. So, I think this movie was pretty solid. I liked the cinematography. Really great crane shot, starting up high, going down into her holding the key. That was really nice. If you haven't seen this, definitely check it out. It's one of his best, I would say. One of his best pre-Rope movies. Because, Rope, there's pre-Rope and post-Rope Hitchcock in my mind. Like, you get into, post-Rope, and it's like, you get Strangers on a Train, Dial M for Murder, Rear Window. It's like, that's a different era of Hitchcock stuff. That's a little bit, I wouldn't say high concept. He starts, messing with, the idea of, filmmaking, and kind of turns things on its head a little bit. Notorious, really great. Highly recommend it. Next one is going to be Rope, actually. The next movie I will watch 2 years later. And I think that's it. Okay, so I just saw Rope for the second time. I had seen it once before criminally on an iPod classic screen.
which, like, when I first got into movies in like 2007 or 8, the method with which I watched most of them was on my sister's iPod Classic, with like the spin wheel, touch wheel thing. So this tiny little, 2-inch by 3-inch screen was how I watched a lot of classic movies, including Seven Samurai, which is like a sin that I need to rectify at some point. Like, there has to be a 4K version somewhere, if not HD. Like, I need to rewatch that movie properly on my 4K TV. But that aside, rewatching Rope here. This is one of few on this list so far that I've rewatched. I had seen Lady Vanishes. I had seen Rebecca, and I had seen Notorious, and I had seen Rope before as well. So this is 1948. We're approaching the 50s, which was like his best decade, honestly, save for Psycho, which was 1960, I would say. But Rope is magnificent. It how do I say this? I think that it gets kind of overlooked in kind of criminal ways for being like a tropey or gimmicky kind of movie. But the contents within the movie, I think, are like pretty solid. It was based off of a play by Patrick Hamilton, a 1929 play, actually. I don't know how close it is to the play, but I love a lot of the aspects of the dialogue, the characters, the themes, the plot. And I really love the unbroken narrative of the movie. The fact that they filmed this in a way to make it look like it was taking place in real time. A lot of people think that it's gimmicky and maybe distracts from the actual movie, but I think it works perfectly in a play setting. And I think it works really well here. And they, like, you don't see this happening in Hollywood anymore. Like, we have the ability, my wife and I just rewatched this, and I was telling her, like, we have the ability to, like, do this all the time because Hollywood is infinitely rich, and it just doesn't happen. And, like, she agreed that it's like, it's a travesty. So I'm not going to spoil any aspects of the movie, but, like, it's all kind of upfront in the general premise, being that two characters murder one of their school friends, and then hide the body during a party which takes place in real time. And the whole premise is that they're trying to get away with murder and not have anyone know where this person has gone. The acting is great. I know Jimmy Stewart apparently didn't love this movie. It was one of his least favorites of the Hitchcock movies he was in. And I think it's just because he felt miscast as the professor, which I could see that being the case. I don't think was that much older than the other two guys. Jimmy Stewart was born in 1908. The other guys were born in 1920 and 1925. So he was only 20 years their superior, which makes sense, right? Like a 40-year-old professor with 20-year-old students. I don't know why he felt miscast. I thought he did a great job. The thing I love about this movie, and I'm not going to get into spoilers here at the moment. There's going to be very little spoilers probably for this one. The thing I love about this movie upon the rewatch is the ability to have highbrow and lowbrow at the same time. The highbrow aspects of, like, talking about philosophy, and they bring up, like, crime and punishment and morality and what it means to be superior or inferior beings amongst other humans, was great. But also being able to contrast that with the lowbrow, morbid nature of the entire movie, being that there is a dead body in the scene the entire movie. There's a dead body in the room the whole movie. And the way a character says later, I won't say because of spoilers, like, you were serving food from his grave. This dead character from the beginning of the movie has been in this chest this whole time. And it's, like, just very grim and, like, suspenseful. But then being able to talk about lofty concepts such as morality, like, and just the whole contrast of the thing is magnificent. And I won't talk a lot about this one because it's been talked about to death. You know, everyone likes to talk about the gimmicky things of the long takes And you can go find other video essays and reviews about the technical aspects, which are really great. I do really like them. It is a bit gimmicky, yes, but it is handled in a very deft way, and I really appreciate that. But the thing that really stood out to me on this rewatch was the ability to have a very suspenseful thriller movie with a couple shortcomings here and there in the plot, I will say, that is able to talk about lofty things whilst being very intense in a way, and you're never quite sure where it's going to shift. I do think Jimmy Stewart did a great job. I'm really excited to see him in more Hitchcock stuff coming up, because he's not only one of my favorite actors, but one of my favorite people. I just love the guy front to back, honestly. And yeah, so I think that's honestly about it. I don't have much to say about the spoiler aspect of it. Aside from, like, you get what's coming to you, and if you knock on the door of God, you're going to get knocked back, so to speak. Yeah, this was a great movie. I loved all the technical aspects. There's a lot of fun trivia to look up, so you can go watch rope video essays if you so desire. But yeah, what really stood out to me was the themes, and just the really good dialogue. Good dialogue mixed with exposition, which is something I try to do in my writing, is mixing important exposition into natural dialogue, which is apparently extremely rare nowadays. I don't see it done much, if at all, and when it's done poorly. And it's honestly not that hard to do, so I wish more people would actually write with the intent of telling a natural story whilst imbuing your God knowledge of the plot into it. But anyway, Rope, fantastic movie. Among top 10 Hitchcock movies, honestly, and I'm kind of saddened that it's not in the top 250 IMDb movies, because I think this is a progenitor for a lot of thrillers going forward, in a very intense way. Like the acting is just really, like, the intensity and what's the word? Not anxiety, but like tension. Yeah, tension. The tension in the acting is like very sublime. Granted, I think that Farley Granger's character was kind of the foil from the beginning. It's just kind of obvious, but so it goes. But yeah, this I don't think this movie gets enough love, and if it does, it's for the wrong reasons. It's not just an interesting technical movie for 1948. I think that the actual subject matter and the original source material can stand on its own. So that is Rope. Next one that we will be doing is Stage Fright. Have not seen it. Let's go. Okay. Film number 17. We have Stage Fright from 1950. This was good. It was worse. Like, the sum of its parts was worse than the quality of the parts themselves. This movie was a little, I wouldn't say complicated. It was a little convoluted. It wasn't like the intricacy of the plot went really deep. It was just like people, not being able to see each other, or, like acting like other people in the same room with it's like just stuff like that. The plot was arguably one of the weakest parts of the movie, even though I think it was fine. It started interesting, even if a bit like on a weird, like, offbeat kind of way. But then as it went along, it was just kind of really hard to, like, stay focused on, like, who knew what and who was doing what. I mean, this is just a personal thing. I mean, this movie could be like one of your favorite Hitchcock movies if you've never seen it before, and that would be perfectly fine with me. It's just this movie didn't hit me in as much of a way as previous ones did. In fact, this is probably one of my lesser favorites so far, just because the vibe of it just didn't really do much for me. Best parts, I think, were the acting. Alistair Sim played the main lead actress's father. I think he's a terrific actor. I like him a lot, and I'm really eager to see him in what's apparently the best adaptation of A Christmas Carol. He plays Scrooge in that. Jane Wyman did fantastic. I do not like Marlene Dietrich. She kind of annoys me. So that was an unfortunate thing. I think Michael Wilding did a fantastic job as well. Richard Todd was solid. So yeah, the acting was one of the better parts. Yeah, I'm not going to go a whole lot into spoilers or anything here because I don't have a lot to say about this movie. I think the plot twist at the end was interesting, although by that point everything was kind of a little crazy, so it was sort of like, all right, whatever. And man, I've said this before, Hitchcock and his endings, very often just completely abrupt. I would actually say that Rope has been one of the more like deft endings so far to his more like thriller kind of tight tension sort of movies. It's hard to think back. I think Lady Vanishes ended fine. Rebecca was, I think, fine. But there's been some here where it's just like just immediate flatline into the end, and it's like, oh wow, it's like we were running a marathon and now we're just coming to a complete stop. But yeah, this was okay. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I can take it or leave it. I could see people enjoying this one because it has a variety of good components, I think. I just don't think that they meshed well into a final product. But it's still a good movie. So, next one is Strangers on a Train. Whoa, is it the same recording session? I guess it is. Yeah, I finished Stage Fright yesterday, and I watched Strangers on a Train today. I had seen this movie before with my parents before I was married, watched it again today. Fantastic movie. I really dig the vibe of this one. Robert Walker steals the show. Really tragic story with Robert Walker. Died shortly after the movie came out at age 32. Which, man, is only like, is twice divorced by 30, which is wild. Suffered from alcoholism, mental illness. I don't know what caused his death. Let me look down. Was it just kind of like because of substance abuse? I guess, I don't know. I'm not going to look that closely at it, but yeah, fantastic acting from him in this. Plays basically a psychopath, and portrays it really well. I got Farley Granger back from Rope here, doing a great job. Ruth Roman is pretty solid as well. Leo Carroll is making a reappearance. He was in Spellbound, and he's going to show up in North by Northwest. I may have actually seen him in a previous one as well. Have I? Rebecca. Yeah, Rebecca. And I remember him as a doctor from Spellbound, and apparently he's a professor in North by Northwest, so I'll have to keep an eye on him for that. I have seen that movie, but I don't remember him appearing. Yeah, we got Patricia Hitchcock, Alfred and Alma's daughter. Did a great job. Fantastic work from her. Yeah, so I had seen this movie before. The plot is just like, it's very simple, but super easy to watch. Things just kind of get naturally complicated in a way that you can still follow, and the tension is still obvious. Yeah, anything to say about like spoilers on this one? It has some interesting like shot composition. You have that famous shot through the broken eyeglasses during a certain tense scene. Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe like any criticisms to level at it would be like sometimes the plot hinges on really small, mundane details, which I think I may have mentioned my gripe with this in a previous Hitchcock movie. I don't always love when plots hinge around things that could go very easily north or south from a character motivation perspective. But I mean, it's just a super small, tiny criticism. But yeah, this movie, freaking good. Great dialogue as well. You have Raymond Chandler on the screenplay, which is pretty legit. Yeah, I think this one is great. If you guys have not seen it, definitely check it out. Super simple, but just like it thrives. Like the plot is good, but it thrives off of dialogue and acting, which just completely steal the show. So yeah, fantastic one. The next one that we have on the docket is going to be, let me look real quick. I confess I have not seen I Confess. And then we're going to go into like an awesome stretch with Dial M for Murder and Rear Window, which are two of my favorite Hitchcock movies. Freaking love Dial M for Murder. Super excited to watch that one again. But number 19 is coming up, I Confess. Okay, everyone, we are doing I Confess today, Hitchcock's 1953 film. Watching this between Strangers on a Train and Dial M for Murder. This is the worst one so far. This is kind of weird because, like I said, my criteria for the movies that I was going to watch on this list, have to be, the movie has to have a positive critic and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and that's how I gathered these movies together. This one has an 81% critic score with 31 reviews. And a 77% from 5,000 plus audience rankings. So it's not like it's just barely, scratching by. A lot of people thought this was pretty good. I shouldn't say it's bad. It's just nowhere near on par. Like, it's worse than The Lodger, I would say, which is hardly a Hitchcock movie. But the problem with this movie, and I will get into some spoiler moments here. The problem with this movie is there is no suspense, and the plot is not dynamic. You're just on this through line of watching things happen, and then they just kind of resolve themselves in a very kind of, I wouldn't say lazy way, but an anticlimactic way. It's just not the typical Hitchcock that I'm used to. I even, because I thought after I watched it, like, wait, I thought this was supposed to be good, but I didn't really enjoy it all that much. So the reception section here on Wikipedia, the film received mixed to negative reviews from critics. Guy from the New York Times said it was padded and had a suspenseless script, which I'm like, I agree with that. And it was apparently only in more recent years that it's been kind of gaining more traction and like a better outlook. It says in 2012, The Guardian called the film a forgotten, albeit flawed masterpiece. I'm like, it's not a masterpiece. What are you talking about? So I'll briefly get into a small spoiler section here, since it's on my mind. Montgomery Clift's acting was so subpar. I was kind of surprised. Like, as the movie started, I thought like, ooh, this like a brooding priest. Like I'm really, I like the way this guy looks, the way he's acting. I'm eager to see like him have these like struggles, because the movie, starts with its premise just right up there in front. And people have mentioned this is one of the few Hitchcock movies, or one of the first ones, where it's like there's no mystery as to who the killer is. You know who the killer is from the first scene of the movie. And I was really excited to see Montgomery Clift act this character who has to deal with this very complicated moral dilemma. And I got none of that. The dude said like 5 sentences in the whole movie, which, what's up with that? And when he has that moment at the trial, he's just like, he's trying to find his best way to tell the truth. But he never really has a moment where it's like, all right, I'm going to do something different and brave. It's like, oh, I'm just going to, all right, I guess I'm the murderer. I'm walking out here. And then it's the wife of the murderer who actually like acts out the whole thing. And even still, like, he does have positive moments in that he accepts the arrest and the penalty, which is, in a way kind of a Jesus analog, but then also tries to talk Otto down from shooting more people, and that's like a little brave moment. But aside from that, that's like the 2 plot beats for his character. Everything else is just a flat line, and it's just not a very dynamic story. It just kind of plays itself out. You get to learn the dynamic between what's her name, Ruth, and Logan, as well as Ruth's husband, I think. Yes. Anyway, I might be mixing this up with a different movie. I can't recall. like that reveal as to like the motive behind how all this happened, that was interesting. But that was really like all the plot worked towards, and once that was done, the movie just kind of coasted on fumes to the end. So yeah, I confess, pretty subpar. For Hitchcock, it's arguably terrible. As a normal movie on its own, it's all right. It doesn't. It's not too offensive. It's there and then it's gone. I confess, I didn't like this one. Anyway, that's it. Some decent acting. Okay moments in the story, but there's a lot of flaws to it that make it kind of annoying to watch. But that's I confess, and Dial M for Murder is next. All right, Dial M for Murder. This is one of my favorite Hitchcock movies, and I was so excited to watch this again. I watched it in 4K for the first time on our 4K TV, and woo, man, looks great. I love the set that it takes place in, which was filmed. Where did they film the? Does it say? There's not much under production. Anyway, but I love the flat set for the film. Just kind of like Rope. It's so fun to watch good dialogue. That's why Sleuth is one of my favorite movies. Like when the dialogue is so good that you just really want to see what the next person is going to say, even if it's kind of mundane. That's great acting and great dialogue, and this movie has it. Much like I think Rope does, but I prefer this one far and away. It's dynamic, it's interesting. The plot is, shifts and turns, and you have to follow very minute details. It's just a great mystery, not even mystery, because like everything's kind of out there in the open. Kind of thriller to follow along with. Ray Milland, fantastic. Grace Kelly, great as always. Robert Cummings, he's back from what was it, Saboteur? Yes, Saboteur, which I really like his acting. Really solid stuff. And then Anthony Dawson, great of course, and John Williams, not the composer, but man, he's so good as the inspector, combing his mustache. That's fantastic. I love that they whipped out their pipes in this movie, and the inspector has freaking leather tobacco pouch. That's so cool. That's why it's my favorite one. I don't really want to get into a lot of spoilers here, because I think this is one of those movies that has been talked about a decent amount on the internet and just in culture. But the acting is great, story is great, set is great, it looks fantastic on the new 4K. If you haven't seen it, definitely go check it out. If you have, you know how awesome it is. Just peak Hitchcock, definitely top 10 for me. That's Dial M for Murder. Next one is Rear Window. Right now we're on to Rear Window, 1954. This and Dial M for Murder in 1954, great year for Hitchcock. Obviously a classic. Many people debate whether this, Psycho, or Vertigo are his best movies. This is an absolutely fantastic movie. Again, like Dial M for Murder, I watched it in 4K. Looks magnificent. The camera work is really great. The insane set that they built for this movie at Paramount Studios, entirely indoor, has its own drainage system for the rain sequence. It's nuts. I'm curious as to how often they reuse sets on studios. Like, do you just demolish this once it's done or what? But super iconic movie, obviously. Acting top notch. Jimmy Stewart plays Jimmy Stewart. Grace Kelly plays his boyfriend. The two side actors, Wendell and Thelma, playing Doyle and Janice? What is it? I'm gonna get it. It's Stella. I'm so off. And then Raymond Burr, great as Lars Thorwald. I love watching all the different stories interconnect and play out in the courtyard and in the different windows. This fantastic movie, almost flawless. I would say towards the end, the plot kind of gets a little, assumptions are made, and then they act on the assumptions, and it's like, would that, get the guy in trouble and whatnot. But I'm not even going to go into spoilers on this one, because again, it's one of those movies that's been talked about to death, analyzed. You could watch all kinds of video essays on it on YouTube. A couple moments of with the justice system, be like, oh, it's the wife's ring, blah blah blah, and that's neither here nor there. But all in all, fantastic movie. Really great. Looks great on 4K. These 4K remasters of Hitchcock movies that have kind of been appearing look fantastic. Some of the shots are just like super nice and crisp. I think this movie has like a cozy quality to it, even though it's like a mystery and a thriller. There's something kind of like intimate because you're in the apartment for pretty much the entire movie. This is one of the first movies I feel where the villain is actually mysterious and ominous rather than just like a force to be reckoned with. Like before this, if it was anything psychological, it was like, oh, I have amnesia. I don't remember skiing. And then or the other alternative in the psychological direction is like, oh, I'm a psychopath. Could you kill my dad? And I'll kill your wife. And I'm a tiny little man who has little man syndrome and needs to say important things to feel important. And he hates his parents. And I don't know what I'm saying. Anyway, but this is like the first one. Like I also think of Psycho doing the same thing where the villain has an aura of mystery about him, and just kind of this feeling of like unknown, and it's intimidating, and this is where he kind of starts to dive into it a little bit, because it's like the villain is sort of at arm's length or courtyard's length away for pretty much the whole movie. But fantastic. Love this movie. Classic as always. Good stuff. Next one is To Catch a Thief. I have not seen it. Let's go. Hello everyone, welcome. We're back. I mean, it's still the video, but it's been a little while because between Rear Window, this last movie 21, and this current movie 22, I took a break. I watched Dark on Netflix, all 3 seasons, 26 episodes. Magnificent show. Not perfect, but really good. So if you haven't seen it, highly recommend checking it out. It's like Christopher Nolan on steroids. It's like if Ari Aster made a Christopher Nolan script, basically. So we are here on movie 22, To Catch a Thief. Just saw this today. What a nice movie. What a splendid, fun, breezy movie. So this was from 1955. This is Cary Grant and Grace Kelly, like 1 year before she retired. This movie was a lot of fun. It's not perfect. It's barely a thriller. There's not much suspense. Apparently that was part of the mixed reviews of the movie at the time. I think it's kind of viewed a little bit more favorably today in the modern era. But yeah, it has about as much tension as something like The Sting does, where it's like, you want to see these people succeed, but also it's fun and breezy, and there are stakes involved, but because of the nature and atmosphere of the movie, it just it doesn't amount to much of a thriller or a horror, like anything that Hitchcock is kind of known for. In a way, it's kind of like Rebecca, where it just sort of stands out as like something a little bit different. I wouldn't say like, oh, if you love Hitchcock, watch To Catch a Thief. It's like a good movie in its own way. Things I got to say about it: Cary Grant, Grace Kelly, honestly, all of the actors did a fantastic job in this movie. It was a lot of fun. You could actually see, someone's burning something out there. You could actually, I don't know if you can hear that. You could tell that Cary Grant sometimes, like, I wouldn't say flubbed his lines, but found things to be funny. And almost couldn't keep himself composed in a scene, which was a lot of fun. You could tell they had a lot of fun filming it. It was largely filmed in Paramount Studios, apparently. But still, it's supposed to be set in the French Riviera, which, my gosh, it's like the most beautiful place on planet Earth. It's like you have that like Grecian-looking like coastline, Parisian streets, Italian-looking villas. I'm like, if I could retire like a billionaire or something, that would be where I would go. I would go to the French Riviera. I would learn French. Just like that's my vibe. That's everything that I enjoy about the beauty of planet Earth all in one location. It was so cool to see that. And it was The 4K, I believe it was, version that I watched, it looks incredible. The restoration, whatever they did, I don't know how it looked before, but it looks like it was filmed in the 80s. And I know the next movie that I'm doing, Trouble with Harry, I think is also 4K, and I kind of skimmed through that, and it also just looks beautiful, super crisp, super saturated colors. It just looks amazing. So this movie, the setting, and if you can watch it in like a modern 4K format, just eye candy, complete eye candy. The plot is fine. It's serviceable. Classic kind of, guy on the run sort of thing, but it's a little bit more of a slower pace to it. So I would definitely say that this is one of the, I'm not going to go into any spoilers on this or anything because it's not really plot dense. It's very flighty, breezy, fun kind of movie. It gets in and it gets out, and it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's barely like an hour 40. So I would highly recommend this as a hidden gem for Hitchcock because, like I said, it's not really Hitchcockian per se. It is well directed, but like it completely coasts off of the setting, the great colors, it looks amazing, and the fantastic acting as well. It's just, I have a sneeze coming. There it is. And that's all I have to say about To Catch a Thief. Trouble with Harry is next. Okay, movie number 23, The Trouble with Harry. This is pretty good. It's pretty good. Kind of an odd thing for Hitchcock, a black comedy. But let's just say this. It's good for what it is. It's not one I'll probably be coming back to, but like I had a really fun time watching it. The 4K looks incredible. Like the Vermont location that they shot in, which was where? Craftsbury, Vermont. Some of it I could tell was shot on a soundstage, which I found out was in a gym because it was raining, and they even had to dub the voices over a little bit later because of the rain. But the acting is great. Dialogue is funny. The story is pretty straightforward and simple. Nothing too crazy, too out there. Shirley MacLaine does great in her film debut here. I don't quite know how. I'm not gonna talk about this one for very long at all because there's not a ton to talk about, and I'm not gonna go into spoilers or anything like that. But there's something about it that it doesn't like rise above itself. It is what it is. But like I don't have very much to say about it that's like negative. So I don't quite know how to properly convey what it is that I'm trying to say. It does look great. That's about all I got, honestly. The score is good. I like the fact that the corpse is just kind of a MacGuffin and everything sort of happens around it. It gets a little tedious in the middle when they're constantly digging up and reburying over and over. Not a whole lot to say about it, honestly. I would recommend watching it if it sounds interesting to you. Like this black comedy about like 4 people finding a dead body up in the woods near the town. It's just the plot is kind of weird. It's just there's something sort of odd and simple about it, but it was enjoyable. I'll say that much. Next one is The Man Who Knew Too Much, the remake. Eager to watch this one again. It's been a while since I've filmed the first Man Who Knew Too Much, so we'll see how much I can remember to compare. Okay, film number 24, we have The Man Who Knew Too Much remake from 56. Now, like I probably just said a little bit ago, I recorded it yesterday, it's been long enough that I don't remember entirely the first movie. I would say upon first viewing of this, and what I remember of this isn't my first viewing. I've seen this many times before, a handful of times before. I grew up with it. My mom loves this movie, loves the Que Sera Sera song. I think that parts of the original movie are better, and parts of this one are better. The problems with this movie, I would say, is that one of the strengths is that it's a bit longer, and so it's able to kind of give more life and breath to certain plot points that really help. Whereas the original one, which was 34, This is back before they really knew how to let scripts kind of and movies live and breathe. It was only 75 minutes long. It wasn't even up to 90. It was pretty short. This one, however, exactly 2 hours. So that is a strength. It's also a weakness, because there are definitely scenes that feel like padded, like the scene where they're at dinner just kind of talking. There's the full Que Sera Sera song featured in it, which, you know, that's fine. It's an original track, whatever. There are definitely moments, though, where it's like, this could have been gotten rid of, or you could have at least put interesting stuff into this scene to justify its existence. I would say the simplicity of the first one is attractive. I like the gunfight at the end. It feels sort of out of place, but it's kind of fun. So the simplicity of the first one is a strength. This one isn't complicated. It's just also not, excuse me, it's not extremely satisfying in the payoff. The way that I feel like the way that all the events went down in the first movie was a little more satisfying than this one. I would say James Stewart, always great. Doris Day, a little overrated in my opinion. She's a little vanilla, kind of boring. Great singing voice though. And then the kid was, you know, Hank. He was Hank. What else? What else to say? I'm not going to talk a lot about the plot. It's not that much different. Yeah, I don't know. Not a whole lot to say. Did I see this one in 4K? I think I did. I remember it looking pretty decent. Yeah, it's a fun movie. It's hard to recommend one over the other, the original or this remake. And Hitchcock in the Truffaut interview said himself, let's say the first version is a work of a talented amateur, and the second was made by a professional. And that's kind of the way I feel about it. There's a strong aspect to the simplicity and tightness of the first movie, and Peter Lorre, I think, is a much more fantastic villain in that movie than in this one. But the original didn't have James Stewart, so what can you do? It's worth watching both. Maybe you guys might like one vastly more than the other. I think that they both have pros and cons, and collectively together, I think, make for a very nice kind of suspenseful thriller kind of movie. So, good stuff. Not my favorite, even though I have seen it plenty because my mom loved it. Still does. But not a bad entry in the Hitchcock canon for sure. All right, next one's going to be The Wrong Man. I have seen this one before. I remember it being decent, but maybe a bit slow and kind of a dud in a weird way. But like I said, not bad. So I'll be rewatching that one and let you guys know what I think. Okay, everyone, this is a little belated. I apologize. I mean, it doesn't make sense to you watching at home, but it's been like a month since I saw The Man Who Knew Too Much. And probably somewhere in between now and then, I saw The Wrong Man. I've seen this and Vertigo in between now and the last recording session. So 2 movies. The Wrong Man, this is something I watched with my parents back in, before I was married, so over a decade ago, probably. This is another like oddball quirk for Hitchcock, because it doesn't quite fit into his other oeuvre of movies, kind of like Rebecca, somewhat like some other movies of his that are just kind of like one-off interesting things, like the black comedy of Trouble with Harry, etc. This one, 56, kind of classified as like a docudrama because it's based very heavily on a true story, which is very few and far between for Hitchcock to follow like a real-life event plot. And it's a good thing and a bad thing here with The Wrong Man. So the premise of The Wrong Man is just an innocent guy gets roped into being blamed for a crime that he did not commit. And that's kind of the first half of the movie. The second half of the movie is him kind of in his life and his family kind of dealing with the fallout of this thing occurring to him. And he was already a very poor person living paycheck to paycheck, so this just kind of wrecked him. It was based off of someone named Emmanuel Balistrero. which I believe Henry Fonda's character is actually named after in the movie as well. I don't know exactly the disparity between the real life stuff and the fiction in the movie, but from just watching it, you can kind of tell that it's this real life story because it lacks good writing. Like when you write a fictional drama, this movie does some things that just kind of defy those logical base principles. And when you know that it's based on a true story, which Hitchcock's cameo, if you dare call it that, was just him at the opening of the movie in far away from the camera silhouette explaining to the audience that this is a true story. That's his cameo, and it's literally just him, which is very, so far in this binge of movies has been unprecedented. Because it's following the real life events very closely, it lacks some certain punches. The pacing is a little weird, but that's just because it follows closely to the real life events, but not entirely. The movie actually ends, I know this much at the very least, you guys can maybe let me know in the comments if I haven't already said that for 4 million movies before this, who even knows? I don't even remember when I started doing this friggin' project. You can let me know in the comments if this is not the only thing that's wildly different. I know that the ending of this movie is not reflective of the actual real life outcome and circumstance of this event. And that's when I'm going to get into spoilers here. So here's spoilers for The Wrong Man. I know that Manny's wife, Emmanuel's wife, did not fully recover until her death, which is extremely tragic. As someone who has a spouse who they themselves, my wife, struggles with, I don't want to say panic attacks, but definitely has anxiety problems, and has these moments of being very distant. I could very much relate to Henry Fonda's character in this movie this watch around, because the last time I had seen it was before I was even married. And I dated my wife for about a year before we got married. So that was very quick. I think I saw this movie while I was still a bachelor. So watching it again struck home very hard. And the uplifting ending is nice, but then realizing that Emmanuel Balestrero's wife actually didn't fully recover is incredibly tragic. I just completely resonated with this guy's character. All that being said, though, and Vera Miles, fantastic acting, great. Henry Fonda did a pretty decent job as well. Really odd choice for the casting on Henry Fonda. Probably should have been someone else, but he did an okay job. So this movie, voice crack, I think if you like Hitchcock, should be watched out of curiosity. It's probably only worth one watch, though. On the second watch, I didn't get much more out of it. And if anything, it was just a little frustrating as a movie, because once I knew that it was a real life event, the pacing just kind of fell apart. But it's really cool to see this movie as one of the first instances of New York being depicted in a very seedy, gross way. And I know that Scorsese took influence from this for Taxi Driver, which makes complete sense once you've seen it. But although they're worlds apart, it makes complete sense. So it's not a bad movie. It's not a perfect movie, though. But I would recommend watching it if you're a Hitchcock fan and you're curious. But that's about all I have to say about it. There's nothing super interesting. Maybe some cool cinematography here and there, but it's very, kitchen sink realism kind of movie, and it works fine enough as that. So that's The Wrong Man. On to Vertigo. All right, ladies and gentlemen, film 26 out of 32. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 movies to go. We're almost in the clear. Great. We're in a trio of great movies here, though, for 58 to 60. Really good stuff. So today we're doing Vertigo. This is the 26th movie that I have seen. I have seen this once before, so this is my second rewatch. or my first rewatch, my second watch. Last Jimmy Stewart Hitchcock movie, is that correct? I don't know. Last one on this list, I think, though, right? I don't think he's in Marnie, Frenzy, or Family Plot. So, last Jimmy Stewart movie, which this movie kind of threw me for a loop the first time I saw it, because I had grown up with some Hitchcock. Like, I had seen, I think, Rear Window before this, maybe even Psycho before this, as well as a handful of others that I grew up with, like The Birds and some others. This one is a little bit of a different take on Hitchcock. It's almost like, when I was watching this with my wife, I said, it's almost like Hitchcock is aware that Hitchcock is a genre, and he wants to subvert it a little bit. This is the beginning of some subversions, which I think culminates with Psycho. North by Northwest is a very approachable, normal Hitchcock movie, but this one is the beginning of signs that he wants to subvert himself and his own brand. And I'm curious to see how that translates into post-Psycho stuff, because I have not seen anything after Psycho. So that's the meta aside. Vertigo is a really interesting story. It's a tragedy, and it's way more psychological and less of a mystery. There's a fly in here, always. And I think that's what kind of threw me off the first time, because when you watch it, it starts off, and this is what Psycho did to 3x power. It starts off as like, oh, this is an interesting thriller mystery thing. And then it just flips it on its head and does something else. And I wasn't ready for that. And with Vertigo, it's very subtle. So Vertigo is almost, even though it's ranked among his best movies, I would almost recommend watching it later, because it's the beginning of him doing something very subtle. So you have to have the context of Psycho, where you see him do this way more obviously, and have the pretext of a lot of his 40s and 50s movies leading into this. Otherwise, it just it doesn't pack the punch. It's more confusing. And I remember one of my best friends, Brad, who I think I've mentioned on this video before, I assume. We've talked about Hitchcock a good deal. I remember him saying that Vertigo was one of his least favorite Hitchcocks. And I was like, really? And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, I can see why. And rewatching it again with my wife, who had seen it in passing, she watched it with full attention this time, which, by the way, another fantastic 4K version of this with great color. This movie has very vibrant, I wouldn't say Technicolor, just very vibrant, saturated color, very artistically chosen. If you can watch this in the 4K release, do so, because it looks incredible and it's very creepily vibrant. You'll know what I mean when you watch it. So this was her first fully attention paid watch, and she definitely got some of the vibes that I was able to kind of communicate to her on this second viewing as well, that I did not get my first viewing. So let's go a bit into spoilers here. The twist, I think, is the fact with Psycho, I don't want to, have spoilers in Psycho for this part, but there's definitely a moment in Psycho where the movie shifts into a different gear and goes a completely different path than what you thought it was going to do. Vertigo does it when the wife dies and he's not able to get up the tower about, halfway through the movie, or decent ways into the movie. And you're not fully expecting it, but it just adds to the intrigue. But that's when the movie shifts gears and goes in a different direction, and you're not exactly sure that it's done that yet. It's only when he starts to obsess about this other person that you realize, oh, this is actually the woman, and he's pursuing her. And on a second viewing, you realize, the first time I was like, is he gonna realize that this is actually her? I was more obsessed with the mystery of it, because that's what I was used to with Hitchcock. On the second viewing, I was more into he's going down a really creepy psychological path. It's more of a psychological analysis on his character, who has already suffered trauma from his cop buddy dying and him getting vertigo. And now this woman that he loved vicariously, or, distantly, that he was investigating, has died. He's a very traumatized man, and you see him reconciling that with this other woman that he doesn't realize is the same woman, in a very disgusting, gross kind of psychological way. And that was very obvious the second viewing. I did not get that as much the first viewing because I was trying to follow the tracks of Hitchcock that I was familiar with, if that makes sense. So, all that to be said, I think this is a fantastic movie. It looks great in 4K. The 4K release is fantastic. Great last hurrah for Jimmy Stewart. It's just a bit of a mixed bag in terms of when you watch this and what you know to expect, because there's a metadata thing going on above this movie of Hitchcock moving away from his normal oeuvre into things that kind of defy the definitions a little bit. And he toys with that with this movie. And if you don't know that's coming, it's hard to see if it's there, or it's hard to see that it's there, and you get a little underwhelmed. So while I would put this among his best, maybe even top 5, honestly, top 10 certainly, it's a little dense to unpack in that way. So a second viewing definitely helped. But great performance from Jimmy Stewart. Kim Novak did a great job. More fantastic music from Erman, who I think scores all of his stuff going forward, or at least the big stuff. I can't even hear the music in my head, just imagining it. This is one of the first Hitchcock movies that I actually noticed the score in as well. It's a very catchy melody that just recurs throughout the whole movie. But Vertigo, great. Highly recommended, but within certain context. So next one, haven't watched it yet, North by Northwest. Let's go. Okay. Film number 27, we have North by Northwest. I actually saw this one a while ago. I saw it during December, and we got really sick and really busy at the same time, which very much sucked. But it is now January 3rd, and I have the opportunity to film how I feel about this movie. I'd already seen it before. I think only once all the way through, but I'd kind of grown up with it. I was familiar with, the plane scene over in the middle of nowhere, the Mount Rushmore scene, etc., etc. Watching it again a second time, I was kind of stunned at how, airtight this is. The script is, impeccable. The pacing is impeccable. Cary Grant does a great job. Eva Marie Saint and James Mason are also fantastic. It says the screenplay was written by Ernest Lemon, who wanted to write the Hitchcock picture to end all Hitchcock pictures, which it's been really cool to have moments like this where I can watch this movie and be like, this is the best, wrong man movie from Hitchcock. Because if I look back, I don't remember. Did 39 Steps have this? It may have, where the guy was mistaken for someone else or thought they had a crime pegged on him. Basically, is kind of the formula. Young and Innocent had it. Saboteur had it. I'm trying to think. Did Stage Fright have it? It's been a while. I Confess kind of had it. Wrong Man obviously had it. So it's a very common trope. Mistaken identity or what have you in these Hitchcock movies, but this is definitely the best execution of it. A little hard to suspend disbelief at a few points in the movie, especially the culmination of the plane scene. I think is a little ridiculous and stupid at times. I'm not actually going to get too much into the plot here, because there's not really a lot to critique. I can just kind of generally praise it, so we're not going to really be going into spoilers on this one. It's a fantastic movie. It's a fantastic movie. The acting is great. Obviously, you have Bernard Herrmann killing it again with a great score. I would put this in like a top 5 for Hitchcock, honestly. Top 10 easy, top 5 most likely. It's the strongest execution of a lot of the things that he was toying with before. And the stuff he did before was still pretty good, but this is like, it's really hard to turn your nose up at honestly anything in this movie. It's so fun. It looks fantastic, even at like a 1080 version, which is what I saw. Some of the 4Ks, man, like I said, look amazing. I'd love to see this in 4K. Hitchcock's color films in 4K are stunning, honestly, and I'm very eager to rewatch this in 4K if it ever becomes available. If it's available now and I'm stupid, oops. But yeah, fantastic movie. If you guys haven't watched it, definitely go check it out. It's super breezy, super fun. Cary Grant makes it easy. I love thriller, like spy thriller movies that are just a blast to watch. That's kind of how I felt about like Pink Panther, the first Pink Panther movie, which is obviously a comedy. It's meant to be breezy, but it's the cozy mystery thing, right? It's like you want a little bit of like intrigue and mystery to go with your like cozy, comfy feeling. And I don't know what it is psychologically about that just like, it's good. It's satisfying. So North by Northwest, fantastic movie. Loved it even more on the second viewing. The dialogue really jumped out to me on the second viewing. I don't know why it didn't before, but also like just all the nuances of the story, and it's just a really super well written script. So North by Northwest, fantastic, good stuff. Next one will be Psycho. I've seen it before. Might be my favorite Hitchcock movie. We'll see how it stacks up on a second viewing because I've only seen it once. But I remember adoring it the first time I saw it, probably 10 years ago. No, actually 15 years ago. I'm 30 freaking years old, man. And then we'll be doing The Birds, which I have not seen in full. And then Marnie, Frenzy, and Family Plot are the last 3, which I have not seen. So we're in the tail end here. I know this video is probably like infinitely long, but that's okay. Psycho. Okay, so here I am. It's the 27th of January, 2023. I don't remember when I recorded the North by Northwest video, but here we are with Psycho, the 1960 movie from Alfred Hitchcock. So I don't want to like tread ground that's already been tread, so to speak. I don't remember how long it was since I did the North by Northwest video, but this is just a year after North by Northwest, which was 1959. This is 1960. I don't want to retread ground that's been covered so many times in so many other videos. I'm sure if you go and watch other Psycho videos, they've covered so many of the interesting aspects of this movie. This is when Hitchcock apparently decided to like just completely shift gears. Like North by Northwest was a really interesting, I said that just a second ago, I'm sure, in this video, not in real time, but in this video, and like a culmination of a lot of his elements. And in a lot of ways, North by Northwest is one of the best Hitchcock movies ever made because it's one of the best Hitchcock movies. But around the late 50s going into the 60s, he started to like break his own mold, and he wanted, apparently, like, I haven't seen anything documentary level, Hitchcock Truffaut, anything like that yet, but by this point it seemed like he really wanted to shed that skin. He really wanted to move forward into a different level of filmmaking. And Psycho, and then I've also seen The Birds, which I'll talk about in the next section, really highlight, showcase. He definitely is not doing what's normal at this point, and that's really interesting to me. So with Psycho, I will say, before we get into any kind of spoiler section, what have you, if you have not seen Psycho, you have not seen one of the best horror movies ever made. You have not seen one of the best psychological movies ever made. This is 1960, and that might not give you a lot of whole lot of context, but the more you watch movies, the more you'll realize how much Psycho did for the landscape of horror going forward. Some people say it's the first, earliest example of a slasher movie, which I would say is fairly accurate. And this is also, like, North by Northwest was very much by the numbers. It was all of the Hitchcock tropes that you knew at this point, if you've watched all that I've watched, going into this point, concentrated and culminated in a very direct way. So a lot of the movies that I have watched over the late 40s into the 50s was culminated with North by Northwest, which was 59. But with Psycho, it seems like he's just ready to kind of flip everything on its head and give things, I would say, a very unpredictable quality. And if you didn't know this at the time, he didn't want people to join a movie theater film viewing of this movie if it took place after the movie has started. You could not join a live presentation of this movie if it had already begun, because he didn't want the actual effect of the movie flipping on its head halfway through to be spoiled. So that's all I will say before we go into any kind of like spoiler territory here. And like, to be fair, if you have not seen Psycho, it's one of the best horror movies ever made. If you've seen a lot of horror movies, you owe it to yourself to check this one out. If you have not seen it yet, go check it out. Stop what I'm doing right now, go watch it, and come back, and you will thank me. So, spoilers, boom. Psycho, one of the best horror movies ever made. Easy, hard to deny. Set the groundwork for a lot of horror movies going forward. I don't know what, I will say this also in the next movie, The Birds, going forward. I don't know what Italy was doing at this time, because I know that in the 60s, Italian horror movies were very spicy, so to speak. You had like Suspiria, which was 60s, right? Bird with the Crystal Plumage, that was also maybe 60s. I don't know. I'm speaking out of my element a little bit. I have not seen those movies, so I'm not sure. But I know that in the 60s, Italy started to kind of show its chops for horror movies. I assume, I mean, obviously Psycho is 1960. All of what Italy was doing was probably post-Psycho. So I think Psycho set a ground level for cinema by and large, and you cannot deny that. I don't think you can deny that at all. So to be very spoilerific here, Anthony Perkins is immaculate. I love his acting style. I remember seeing him in Murder on the Orient Express. He was fantastic in that. I love his very raw, natural acting style, and it worked super well in Psycho. Like, I remember seeing Psycho for the first time, which was, I was probably like 16. It was over 10 years ago, easy. But I remember watching it and being like, okay, this is following all the beats of these, black and white movies I remember from the 50s. And then I saw Anthony Perkins. I'm like, this dude is acting as if he existed now, like in 2012 or whenever I first saw the movie. And that kind of blew me away. Like, Anthony Perkins' style was so raw and honest. And I don't know if that's been talked about enough, but I want to kind of commend it here because he's so transparent and honest, especially with his acting style, just in general, that I need to commend it. Also, I have to commend this movie for having kind of one of the first big story twists, notably in cinema history, where the movie 30 to 40 minutes in changes and becomes about something else other than the characters you were following before, which is really unknown at the time. If there was something else happening around this time that was doing this kind of stuff but before and it wasn't well known, let me know, because this is the first instance I know in cinema history of this kind of stuff happening, where just the movie gets flipped on its head by default, by definition. And it's super interesting. The gothic story of Norman Bates and his mother being kind of like in the background, but culminating into the climax of the movie is really nice. And I have not seen Bates Motel yet. I plan on watching it going into the future, probably not after. I probably will have not seen it when this video gets published, most likely, since I'm at the very end now, and I have not had a chance to watch any Bates Motel. But I want to watch it to see if it's anything worthwhile. Because one of the strengths of this movie is that you're led to be interested in Marion Crane, Janet Leigh's character, going into the movie, and then 30-40 minutes in, it's flipped on its head, and you realize that Norman Bates and his mom is kind of the centrifuge of the movie. But as you're watching, it's like very mysterious. You don't know much about them. It's all hearsay. Through scenes that are not extremely fantastic. I know people have criticized the last part of this movie where the detective or psychologist, whoever it is, basically explains Anthony Perkins' mindset, so to speak, which I feel like is okay given the context, but like it probably could have been done a little bit better, and some of it could have been omitted because we could assume as much. But it's very interesting insight, and I wonder if not having the mystery of the Bates family revealed in the story adds to it, which is why I want to check back with you guys after having watched the Bates Motel content to say like if it's worthwhile to not have any context, because maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I don't know. But all that said, Psycho, one of the top 5 Hitchcock movies of all time, easy. It's incredible. First slasher movie, arguably. If you have not seen it, you have to. It's one of the best horror movies of all time. It's borderline immaculate. It's great. Filmed with Hitchcock's Alfred Hitchcock Presents crew. Fantastic. Go watch it if you haven't. It's great. I can't really deflate it at all. And there's been so many videos made about it. You can go watch that on YouTube. I don't care. It's not really what this is about. So we'll go on to The Birds next.
Okay, everyone. Film 29, The Birds. It has been viewed. I actually watched this probably, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Had been busy with life stuff. You know how it goes. Not that it matters. You're all watching this at the same time, even though this has all happened over the course of time. The Birds, 1963. I don't know if I don't remember how much I've talked about this movie on this video so far, but just for a quick preamble history on this. I grew up kind of watching The Birds a little bit. I don't remember if my mom or dad liked or disliked this. I can't recall. But I remember kind of growing up, and my wife felt the same way growing up, that The Birds was just kind of like the annoying one, where it was like, oh, it's just birds and they're just attacking people and the sounds are annoying and they screech and it's not that scary. And that's just kind of how I always felt growing up.
But then I knew that like it was fairly well regarded in a lot of ways. Some people really, really liked it. And I was always just like, why? It's the birds, dude. Like, grow up. But now upon rewatching it, my opinion has changed. My opinion has changed. I don't love this movie, but I do think it is quite interesting. There's a lot of value to this. Ever since Psycho, he's been kind of Hitchcock is starting to kind of like push some stuff. Like in a lot of ways, like we talked about a little bit, Psycho, first slasher movie in a way, 1960, dang. But with The Birds, for 1963, for like a mainstream release from Hitchcock under the Universal umbrella, surprisingly violent shots in this movie. Guy with eyes pecked out zooms in on his face, and it's like, dude. So for 1963, pretty nuts. That one shot is more violent than the entirety of the shower scene from Psycho, and also the the themes that are going on. It's definitely a more experimental movie for sure, and I didn't really pick up on that growing up. So in a lot of ways, it's not really a great movie for like younger people. Because it's dealing with more of like social themes, and that's kind of like the reflection of what The Birds are doing. I'll get into spoilers here in a little bit, but before I do that, I will just say I really enjoyed the atmosphere of certain parts of this movie, especially the ending. Fantastic. The lack of music, I think, is really potent as well. Certain detractors would be like, I think there's certain bird attack scenes that go on a little too long. What else? I don't know. I think the acting is great. Rod Taylor, who is, looked like a mix between, I don't know, Cary Grant and Robin Williams. He did great. Tippi Hedren was pretty solid as well. Jessica Tandy, Suzanne Plachette, all Veronica Cartwright, young Veronica Cartwright, all solid work. Nothing to turn my nose up at. Interesting special effects. I like that a lot of it was just birds flying in front of a projector, which was pretty funny. But yeah, if before I get into spoilers, I will say if you haven't seen this and you're vaguely interested in Hitchcock or horror movies, it's worth watching for the historical value, because there are things that Hitchcock toys with in this movie that kind of set some foundations for horror and thriller stuff going forward that he hadn't really toyed with yet. It's a more meta kind of movie with some psychological aspects and reflections in it. So definitely check it out if you feel inclined. But now getting into spoilers, obvious themes in the movie being like the social status of Tippi Hedren's character, Melanie. Same with Mitch, Rod Taylor's character, and just kind of their aloofness. I know that's a big thing that Hitchcock has kind of talked about, is just complacency. And that's obviously reflected in the bird attacks. And also you got the double entendre of birds is very obvious as well. I really like the interesting aspect of the lovebirds showing up, them being the only ones who do not get violent. And man, that ending scene, like with just the wind blowing outside, the really like kind of twilight moonlit set, as he's pulling the car in and just like no music, really like chilling, cool, compelling ending. And I vaguely remembered that as a kid, but like watching it again, I'm like, well, this is actually like really cool. And then it just ends with them leaving. And I think the obvious implication is once she leaves this quaint seaside town, this will probably stop, right? There's this weird thing of like, oil meets water kind of thing going on with her showing up at Bodega Bay and kind of stirring up the pot a little bit. And stuff that I've watched part of Marnie coming up, which I'm not going to talk a ton about here, but I will say the thing I like about The Birds is it takes the formula like something from Marnie, or past Hitchcock movies, of the Cary Grant type stuff of romance drama, and kind of flips it on its head and shows how like vapid it can be. Granted, it's fine to watch as a movie, escapism, whatnot, but I like the idea of a story happening and then just all of a sudden it's like, this just doesn't matter anymore. Let's have birds kill everybody. I find that really, really funny. And also, like, having seen Birdemic a couple times with like riff tracks and whatnot, I now understand why what's his name, James Nguyen decided to just have a normal story happen and then literally a cut and then birds are there. Like, oh, because it happens in here technically. Granted, there's a lead up of like, dread of, oh, a gull attacks her on the boat and then blah, blah, blah. But great shots in this movie as well of like her turning around and just the playground being covered in birds. Really great scenes. And it's like just offsets the kind of happy-go-lucky, socialite comes to flirt with a lawyer, but anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. It's not incredibly remarkable. It's a little rough around the edges, but it's commendable, and it's worth watching for a variety of reasons because of the things I brought up, the kind of meta stuff that it's toying with. And Hitchcock's, ever since North by Northwest, is almost sort of flipping his own formulas onto his head. He was even doing that with Vertigo a little bit, if we're to be completely honest. But anyway, that's The Birds. Marnie is next. I've already seen about half of it, need to finish it, but let's go.
Slow down, Marnie. You might do something crazy. Sean Connery, you fool. You didn't have any idea what you were getting yourself into on this one. Hi, everyone. It's been a bit. It's been a bit since I filmed my Birds follow-up. This is probably even like longer, honestly, between watching the movie and actually recording this. I recorded the Birds one in February. It's now April 4th. I'm really slowing down on this, and I'm right at the end. I need to just truck through and get it done. So, film number 30, Marnie. 1964 on this one. So, I don't know if I've mentioned this much on the Birds, but I felt like ever since Psycho, Hitchcock has been kind of like on this like downward trajectory in terms of like focus and attention. It seems like he's slipping a little bit. And with Marnie, it takes a lot of his old tropes and shoves them together into a new movie, and it doesn't fully work. There's a lot of really great aspects to this movie, things that I think are interesting, but like Sean Connery is completely miscast here, even though he's kind of entertaining to watch at times. So before I get into spoilers, I will say this is a movie that combines elements of, it's like if you took the first part of Psycho before the movie turns into something else and just kept that story going. You have this woman who's going around from place to place disguising herself as different people and just stealing money from corporations. And then as the movie goes on, you find out why, etc., etc. I won't get into the spoilers yet, but there's a lot of elements of the like psychological thriller stuff that he was doing in movies like Suspicion, Spellbound. There's definitely a Spellbound element in here, like with seeing the white lines or the black lines on white or whatever it was in Spellbound. In this movie, it's every time she sees red or hears a thunderstorm, it triggers something, and it's like, what does that mean? So there's definitely all of the psychological elements of his movies showing up again in this, even though it's from a novel. So I don't know how much got changed, what happened, because it was adapted from a novel by someone other than the author. But all in all, I think that this movie's okay. It's really interesting as how far it went at the ending into like really uncomfortable territory for a 1964 film. And that's kind of what I like about like Psycho and onward Hitchcock, is that he's really pushing some boundaries. And I've watched a little bit of Frenzy so far, and I'm not going to say much on that yet, but it seems like he's still kind of continuing to do that, even though his grip is sort of slipping on the style and the focus and the attention to detail that was just like rampant in his 50s movies. So spoilers for Marnie, things I'll touch on. Like I said, Sean Connery completely miscast. This seems like it should have been like the Cary Grant character from Suspicion, but he just doesn't, he can't deliver the lines that need to be delivered in the convincing way that they should be. And it's just super clunky, and kind of amusing at times. But Marnie's backstory, with it culminating in, you know, revealing like what happened to her mother or what she experienced, kind of coalesced in a really satisfying way. Granted, the like that denouement at the end of the movie, where like the mom is upset at Sean Connery and he's trying to like get it out of her, really awkward. But on like just a plot level, I think it works perfectly fine. And like I said, kind of like pushing boundaries for like a 64 Universal Pictures movie. Definitely trying to get some kind of like more gritty, interesting storytelling in there. The horse scene was awful. Terrible to watch. Yeah, this movie kind of just felt like it was meandering in and out of other Hitchcock movies, and so it like just felt like overly long. It's just over 2 hours long. But all that aside, all that to say, Marnie, okay, not bad. It's just less controlled, focused, tonally consistent stuff that Hitchcock has already done, so it's not necessarily worth watching on those regards. But like I said, the ending of the movie, where it all leads to, I think is very forward thinking for 64, and just kind of worth checking out just to see kind of how Hitchcock is doing in the early 60s, post Psycho. But that's Marnie. We have 2 films left, Frenzy and Family Plot. Let's get to them.
I gave up. That's right. You know what? The last time I recorded one of these videos for Marnie was in April of 2023. It is now September of 2025, and I'm finishing this video. You know what? My family has been through all kinds of things since then. Like literally just after recording that Marnie video, we had a miscarriage. And then very shortly after got pregnant with our 4th child, who is now like a 1.5 years old. So it's been a long time, and Frenzy has sat on my Plex server 1/4 watched for like 2 years. And I'm like, you know what? Enough is enough. I have to stop. I have to end this video. I had like 3 hours of content just sitting on my hard drive. I need to put it on YouTube. So basically the way that this whole thing played out was, obviously I was very torn on Marnie. I was like, there's some interesting things going on here, but his grip is slipping. And I've since then I have edited all of the back catalog into a Adobe Premiere Pro project. It's almost 3 hours long. And now here I am finally recording the outro to this thing to end it all, end my suffering. And I mean, I could tell that I was kind of like losing my interest, like coming off of The Birds going into Marnie, but starting into Frenzy, which honestly, like it could be a perfectly fine movie, but like it's not Hitchcock anymore. We're going back into the Lodger territory where it's like, it's just movies. And I kind of want to like leave it there. I don't really want to trudge forward into movies I don't really care all that much about. And Frenzy, I'm sort of intrigued by, and like some of the scenes in the first part of it that I watched were intriguing. I don't remember how far I got into it, maybe 20-30 minutes or so. And the filmmaking was still somewhat intriguing, but it was just kind of unhinged. And I got this sense of like, Hitchcock doesn't really feel like he like has a strong grasp on what he's doing anymore. He's kind of just throwing caution to the wind, which could be fascinating for all I know. Like Frenzy and Family Plot could be like really fascinating insights into just random weird things he was trying. But I also kind of don't care. I kind of want to leave it where it is. Going out on honestly one of his high points, which is Psycho, which I think is truly his last great movie, and then it's almost a nosedive. Birds is solid, but then it's just we're going into like free fall at that point, tonally at least. And I know that he, was having like weird obsessions with like actresses and just certain things. Again, I still have not seen the Truffaut documentary about their conversation. I said I would. I never did. I may in the future at some point, but at this point, like I'm also kind of going through all kinds of other filmographies. I've gone through a good chunk of Tarkovsky, which has been awesome. I'm currently going through Kurosawa. I'm also in the process of watching Cure. Like I'm really deep into like Asian filmmaking right now, and there's some amazing stuff from Korea, especially, like so many great Korean movies. Holy crap. But just also great Japanese movies, and watched The Wages of Fear since then. That's like my 4th favorite movie of all time. Love The Wages of Fear. As well as Diabolic, previous movie by I forget the filmmaker's Name, Henry Clouseau. I don't know. But like I've watched a ton of great stuff since then, and it was really cool to look back on these Hitchcock retrospectives. Not even retrospectives, they were like immediately after I had watched the movie. Within a day or two I was doing those. Really cool to see like how I felt then versus like where I am now, because like I'm here in the same room. My printer has done a Michael Jackson, but we won't talk about that. But like I've kind of graduated to like a different level, because I think everybody kind of starts with like the stuff they grew up with, and then as you're like watching that stuff over and over, you get interested in like what was the stuff that informed that. And I remember the moment I really got into movies was when my sister and brother-in-law showed me movies like Fight Club, Pulp Fiction, stuff that I wouldn't have been allowed to watch growing up. But those were movies that were kind of like a level above or a level behind generationally what I grew up with. And that really fascinated me. And then that continued into like 80s and 70s. And then that also, like when I really got into film, like very soon after that, I was just looking all over the board for anything. I watched Citizen Kane before I probably should have, because I knew it was one of the best movies ever. I didn't have the context for why, but I watched it anyway. With all kinds of stuff like that. I watched The Godfather before I was ready to really fully understand it. And gosh, that's one I really want to go back to, 1 and 2. After having like really soaked up a lot of like old 50s and 60s Japanese and Korean movies. Woman in the Dunes, like, oh dude. So like I'm really, I've pulled up and back, not so far from Hitchcock per se, but like I have a nice well-rounded like rubric of filmography now that I can kind of pull from. And just looking back on Hitchcock stuff, man, what a legend. What a champ. I know there's a handful of people in like the cinephile world who just don't like him. And I get that. But like you have to admit, this was the dude who was pushing the envelope for mainstream thrillers and mysteries. Like hands down, without a doubt. And he did it well. And anyone who says that Psycho, Rope, Rear Window, and Vertigo aren't good movies are like, they're just being contrarians. It's just like, for what they were, they are solid in their positioning in the film world. Hands down, easy. But there's so many other amazing ancillary Hitchcock movies as well. Dial M for Murder. I think Shadow of a Doubt is pretty strong too. I know I was a little on that at the time, but like retrospectively, I appreciate that one. Lifeboat is an interesting one. And then of course you have like 39 Steps, Lady Vanishes from the British era, Rebecca. Like I could go on. Strangers on a Train. Like there's so many fascinating movies, and there was really only a couple where I was like, like Lodger, who cares? You know, I've said enough about that one, but like I confess, shaky territory there. Montgomery Clift is a great actor, so it's kind of worth watching for his performance in some way. If you like him as an actor, as a Hitchcock movie, one of the weaker ones. Handful of others from like the 20s and 30s, but like once that guy got into the 40s and 50s, he was punching, hitting, not missing. It's astounding. Absolutely astounding. And all of these 4K remasters, I put in the video that I missed the North by Northwest 4K by like a very small amount of time, unfortunately. Would love to go back and watch that one again. I haven't seen it since I saw it that last time a few years ago. So we're getting a lot of 4K stuff from Hitchcock, and they look amazing. They're so good. So if there's a time to go back and watch the Hitchcock classics, it's now when we have these amazing 4K remasters. They look amazing. They're so good. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm going to end it. It was just meant to be like a nothing video turned into 3 hours. And I've resurrected it from the past. It took me like, I don't know, 8 months, 10 months or something. Cause like I started in August of 2022, and then April of 2023 is when I recorded the Marnie video. So however many months that is. And now it's September, end of September, 2025, looking down the barrel of the Wes Anderson 4K collection dropping. That'll be a lot of fun to dive into. We're going to watch Fantastic Mr. Fox because it's that time of year, and we're going to do it in 4K. So yeah, that's all I got, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to comment whatever you want. If this video gets only 60 views, who cares? I've done it. It's off my hard drive. I'll put it on a backup external hard drive. It'll go in the closet, and it'll go on YouTube. So that's it. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed, and until next time, take care, fare thee well, and Godspeed.